Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if neglected Naruto gets cheated in RWBY. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NeonZangetsu and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. A bit of bread. It wasn't meant to be this way. We killed her, I know we did. I felt it. I saw her die, tore her head off myself even as Sasuke sealed the rest. It was a hard, bitter victory. But it was our victory. Good men and women died to get the two of us there. To give us the final opening we needed to finish Kaguya off once, and for all. I devoured her body with my chakra. He sealed her soul away with his new eye. She's never getting out. Never coming back. We fought together, set aside our differences, used up the last dregs of our lives to put her away for good. So why am I here? Why am I bleeding to death? Why? I don't understand. Where did we go wrong? Were we betrayed? By whom? Were we defeated at the last minute? How? None of it makes any sense. There's no one left to fight. How could we have been betrayed? Sasuke and I made settled things well, after we blew each other's arms off, but still, that totally counts. We can't possibly die of something like blood loss or chakra exhaustion after coming this far. That's too cruel. Are we really going to die like this? Just like that? There's no one left to help us. All our allies gave their lives to get us, to bring us to this moment. Is there anyone left in this world? Did our battle burn it down to a husk? A faded remnant of its former self? No, there must be something left. Someone there has to be. We can't go out like this. Here I am, lying on the ground, guts gripping in the dark. I can see their bodies all around me. Sasuke, Sakura, even Kakashi, everyone I've ever failed, and the others. So many bodies, so many ghosts. In the end, I couldn't save them, could I? Couldn't save anyone. We won the battle, but lost the war. It's not fair. What good is all this power if can't help anyone? If can't save anyone? Damn it, move. Move, move, move. You stupid body. Don't just give up now. Don't quit. Fight. Damn it all. Don't close your eyes. Don't fall asleep. You won't wake up again. Kurama? Are you there? Did you die too? Come on, furball. Help me out here. You can't be gone. You can't be. Shikaku? Guys? Anyone? Guess not, huh? I'm cold, I'm scared. I fought, I lost, now I rest. That's the way life should be, right? You spend your life striving to a single point, then burn out. Is this what I get for trying? Maybe Madara was right. Maybe a dream would have been better than this. No, I refuse to believe that. If there's a God out there, please. Not like this. I don't want to go out like this. I can't. Not without knowing why. Did I accomplish anything worthwhile? Did my life truly matter? Give me a chance to find out. That's all I ask. I don't care how many lives it takes. I'll gladly die over and over again if that's what it takes. Please. Let me save everyone in front of me. If it's too late for my friends, then another world. Good or evil, I don't care if have to start over. Let there be some meaning in my end. Let me make a difference. Let me help someone. I'll do whatever it takes. So please, just one more chance. Let me save someone. Just one life. Let me make a difference. I'm begging you here. 000. Then carry on, my wayward son, carry on. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your head to rest. 000. Everything hurt. Her arms, her legs, even her poor tummy. No, especially her stomach. She hadn't eaten in 3 whole days now, hadn't had water in 2. Her world was pain. Her tongue was all but glued to the roof of her mouth. Unable to move, she tried to eat it if she could. The mere act of moving took nearly everything she had and more. Sent sharp shards of pain skittering down her broken leg like thousands of angry black spiders. Just the thought of it made her shudder and shiver as she curled her little body into a ball. Emerald hated spiders. She was only a child after all. Girls were afraid of bugs. Bugs were nasty, yucky, icky. She'd eat a bug now, if she could catch one, anything to stave off the hunger shredding her stomach. All the while the searing summer sun of vacuo relentlessly beat down on this girl in her ratty green dress, a harsh reminder of reality. On some distant level Emerald knew she was dying, wasting away in a slow death of fevered starvation alongside a broken heart. No one cared about an orphan in vacuo. They were as common as the very grains of sand themselves. They cared even less so when said orphan made her living as a thief. Not a very good one at that. She was took weak now. Too weak to use her power. The faunus left her alone these days. No one had come to check on her. No one had stopped to ask if she was all right. No. She had been left to crawl along in the alleys like a rat, living off whatever scraps she could find. She was weak, helpless, powerless. Because she'd screwed up, gotten herself caught. Her power, that one special gift that made her unique, the precious ability she'd used to survive for as long as she could remember, had failed her for the first time in her life. And she had no one to blame but herself for it. She'd made a mistake. There had been too many people around and she'd been too hungry to distract them all when she tried to steal food from a merchant. His guards chased her down. They didn't care that she was hungry. They still hurt her, broke her leg as a reminder she couldn't afford any treatment. What little lean she managed to scrounge was soon stolen. She had no parents to speak of. There was no one to rely on, only herself. Her stomach growled traitorously, and she slapped at it in a fit of pique. It only made the pain worse. Emerald hated this place, wanted to leave it behind. They said Vale and Mistral were better than this. Why didn't everyone just go there? She would have gladly done so, If she but knew the way, alas, she did not. Every day the sun rose to scorch her back. Every day Emerald would always mustered what little strength she could to crawl under an awning and find some shade. Every day, everyone walked right over her. Men, women, and children alike, none spared her so much as a passing glance. She wanted to speak, wanted to reach out, but she lacked even the will to do that on the rare occasion she dared to try. She found herself beaten again. Vacuo was a harsh place with only one rule: survival. If you couldn't survive on your own, you weren't welcome. Today should have been no exception. Today, everything changed. Oh geez, a new voice made her jump. You don't look so good. Faltering red eyes looked up, squinting against the harsh afternoon light. Whomever they were clad in little more than dirty rags, not unlike her own. His might have been red, once upon a time, before the sand and the sun bleached them of color silhouetted against that blinding radiance. She glimpsed a boy nearly of her age in the light sharp eyes the color of bright blueberries. Her stomach growled at the thought, gazed down at her, framed by whiskered cheeks alongside a messy mop of blonde hair. Wait. One of those eyes was blackened by a bruise, as if he'd gotten in a fight of some sort. But there was something else, something her blurry vision couldn't quite discern. Emerald blinked again as she squinted into the sun. Only then did she glimpse that pair of golden, furry ears jutting out of that tawny mane. Faunus. Then, oh no, realization dawned, bringing with it a yawning abyss of horror that threatened to swallow her whole. Faunus were worse than people. She'd seen them do terrible things to those who dared cross them, and here she was, a helpless child, barely able to crawl away. Was that a weapon in his hand? Fear blazed to life in her chest and emerged as keening sound through her teeth. She couldn't run, couldn't fit, she was easy prey. Emerald curled into a fretful ball. Go away, her own words emerged as a dry croak. I don't have anything left to take. Why are you doing that? The boy's voice asked, utterly befuddled. I'm not going to hurt you, you know. When it became readily apparent that he wouldn't leave her be or lay a hand on her, only then did she dared to peek at him through aching fingers. Something bright and yellow swished at her feet to tickle her toes, and she noticed the tail a heartbeat later. Wait, tails? She couldn't be sure. Who are you? Me? My name's Naruto. His head tilted, ears twitching in mild curiosity. She found it strangely adorable. His sunny disposition didn't waver in the face of her fear. Who are you? Emerald. Blink, that's a pretty name. Those words were spoken with all the innocence that only a child could possess. Yet something fluttered in Emerald's chest. All the same pretty. She'd never been called that one before. Trash, street rat, waste of space. But never pretty. His smile swayed her opinion, won her heart in an instant even if it hadn't. The tiny canteen at his belt, and the battered loaf of bread clutched in his right hand, not at all the sort of weapon she first feared, dispatched the last of her hesitation. With ruthless efficacy her eyes were drawn to them like a moth to a flame, her throat burning, stomach curling painfully in on itself. The boy must have seen her staring too, because he glanced at the hardened loaf. Only then did his gaze fall back upon her. You want this? He asked. Emerald would have lunged at him, tried to take it, if she were strong enough in her current state. She could only paw at the air and hang her head in despair. Stupid, of course he wouldn't give it to her. Only a fool would give a starving girl their only food and water. Only the strong survived. Here she tried to take her power, her semblance, and push it at him, trick him, make him see what she wanted to see. She couldn't. The pain was too great, her hunger too taxing for her to focus. She could only groan and resign herself to failure. Her heart just about stopped when something warm and metal and wet gently pressed itself into her hands. Emerald's first fearful instinct was that the canteen might have been poison, that this was a trick of some sort, meant to make her lower her guard. Thirst overrode this irrational paranoia as she unscrewed the cap and drank deep of the gift she'd been given after going so long without. She nearly choked as a result. Bile threatened to swarm up her throat, but she bit it back down and forced herself to swallow. It was not very good water, all told, but it was far better than anything her parched mouth had seen for the last few days. It was, in a word, bliss. Slow sips. Now Naruto's voice snapped her out of her daze. You'll not want to waste it. In that moment, she would have died content. Then he offered her his only bread. Emerald went terribly still. What about you? I'm not hungry. The faunus favored her with a grim grin. I already ate. Take it. Liar. Now that he'd gotten this close, Emerald could see the truth. He looked worse than her, much worse. His body was covered in bruises and scratches. He'd probably fought for that bread and water, fought hard, yet here he was, giving her his only food. But she was so very hungry, and it was right there just waiting for her. Forward. Ho! Cried the tiny Emerald in charge of her brain as it threw a lever forward. With that finally decision made, Emerald all but snatched the loaf from his hands, nearly biting his fingers in her haste to consume this precious sustenance. It wasn't soft, warm, or even dough yet. That if anything it was hard and stale. She nearly chipped one of her teeth on it when she bit down. It wasn't all that good either. There was nothing particularly special about the meal. It was just a bit of bread. Looking back, it might have been a little stale at that, and yet it was the single best thing Emerald had ever tasted, because for the first time in her life, someone had given her food of their own volition. Hot, bitter tears stung at her eyes as she tore into her meal, but she didn't much mind them because someone was here. She'd found someone who cared for a small child who'd been neglected all her life. Any form of positive attention was enough to rattle her world, even if it came from a scruffy boy barely a year older than her. It changed Emerald's world, shunted aside the beliefs she'd held for so long. Just a hair, a touch, just enough for a tiny seed of hope to plant itself in her heart. This also altered her focus. There was something about his eyes. They seemed older, somehow impossible. Surely she must be imagining things. As she polished off the last of her meal, her gaze turned back to her savior. She was still gnawing on the last of her bread when Naruto bent down and began to massage her head, rough fingers smoothing her green hair slowly and deliberately. Startled by this unexplained act, she glared up at him. Expecting an attack, it never came. He simply continued his ministrations, stroking her scalp in small, soothing motions. Rather, her hair, the very same hair she'd ever hated, always been mocked for. Why? She demanded between the last of her tentative bites. Why would you give me your only food? Are you stupid? Naruto tilted his head again. Because I wanted to, he said simply. Do I need a reason to help someone? The younger girl faltered. No, but that disarming grin flashed out again like gold. Then shut up and accept my goodwill, Greenie. Apparently that goodwill consisted of much more than mere food, because in the time it took Emerald to nibble down on the very last of that crusty bread, her newfound friend, dare she call him such, released her head, reached down, and swept her off her feet. Literally, she scarcely had a moment to gasp before she wound up on the blonde's back. Her small fingers dug into the tattered fabric of his shirt. Her bad leg screamed furiously at this sudden movement, forcing the girl to grit her teeth against it and ride out the pain, but even that searing agony paled in comparison to her confusion. Why? Hey! Stop! She spat. Where are you taking me? Naruto didn't even deign to look back at her home. I don't have a home, she hissed. You do now. Something fractured deep inside of Emerald. It began as a tiny crack in her defenses, a faint line etching itself against the walls she'd put up around herself. A faint tremor rattled her shoulders, followed by a fully body shiver. She fought it at first, refusing to accept the truth with each passing step. Her defenses began to crumble. Naruto kept walking, heedless of the looks they garnered, heedless of the jeers. All the while, Emerald continued to tremble. One hand rose to cup her mouth, while the other fastened itself firmly onto his shoulder. She bit her lip to hold back her tears, worrying it between her teeth as her emotions went to war with one another. Though she had no way of knowing, even in another life, Naruto was still, well, Naruto, no matter the life or incarnation, he had that effect on people that, and he simply didn't take no for an answer. Still, her fears fought her for every step he took, trying to claw her back. Why, you're just going to betray me? Nope, Naruto chimed in loudly over her words to know what that word means. Emerald twitched. You can't just force me to be friends with you. Nope, can am. Her captor disagreed with a whistle. Did wriggled wildly. Let me argue with you, dummy. A blue eye peeped at her over his arm. Nope. Ugh. Where are we even going? Nope, you'll see when we get there. Naruto, she cried, seething. Aha. You said my name. Emerald couldn't win. Every argument was utterly dismantled before she could find her footing. Each path crumbling. Resistance was futile. Much to her dismay, she soon realized she didn't want to win this fight. It was far, far too late for her. She wanted to hold on to this tiny, fragile hope in her chest, cradle it for all it was worth. At some point, she realized her leg had stopped hurting her altogether. The boy had done something, used some strange power to heal her while they bickered, and she hadn't even noticed. Once she realized that, the last of little Emerald's walls came crashing down, and she was lost. She wept and sobbed and wailed and clung onto Naruto's back for dear life, terrified that he would finally come to his senses and drop her at any moment. He didn't, he never did. And from that single act of kindness, that tiny transient friendship between two children, a ripple formed. That ripple would one day become a towering wave, sweeping everyone before it. The echoes of this action would forever shape the world to come. But for now, it was just a bit of bread. Why do you put up with me like this? I'm poison. I'll just drag you down again. I like trouble. Peace is boring. Life's more fun this way, you know? But why? You'd have a better life without me. Your semblance. Nope, you and me? We're besties now. Tough luck. Dolt. You could go anywhere, be anyone. So you're saying I should choose then? Yes. Finally, you're listening to me. Then I choose to be your friend. Screams incoherently. Early days. Rise and shine. He was having the dream again, wasn't he? Naruto knew it the moment he opened his eyes and found himself standing in a sewer for what felt like the umpteenth time when he inhaled. The cloying and musty scent of decay invaded his nose when he moved. The faint slosh of water lapped against the legs of his jeans when he strained his ears. He caught the distant sound of deep breathing. Well, that confirmed a dream. It was who thought up this tacky scenery anyway? Was this meant to intimidate him, and it had the first few times now? It was already old hat to him. Naruto craned his neck, frowning in the dim light as shadows splayed across his face. Here again, huh? It was always like this. Every night since he turned 17, this vision had plagued him without fail. That had been a month ago now. It wasn't even that unpleasant anymore. Really just confusing. Every night he woke to find himself here, standing at the end of a long corridor. Bleak metal green walls stretching into the distance as far as the eye could see. As always, he would glimpse something standing on the other side. Something, or was it someone, was waiting for him. He didn't know how he knew, only that he did. Just as he knew he'd fail to reach the other side in time, he always did. No matter how softly he stepped, no matter how quickly he managed to move, he suspected even if he ran at it full steam, he would inevitably wake before he found the end of the corridor. It was simply a fact of life, one that had grown increasingly tiresome. If this dream was trying to tell him something, it wasn't doing a very good job. Weren't visions supposed to do that? Impart nuggets of wisdom or something? Didn't stop him from wading through the swampy water again anyway. Look, whoever you are, I don't get what you're trying to tell me. His voice echoed out into the dank corridor. But this needs to stop. Silence reigned supreme. A blonde brow twitched. Fine, be that way. Against his better judgment, The blonde surged forward in a mad dash, sending water spitting at his heels as his body blurred blue eyes squinted into the darkness and the salty spray. Desperately trying to glimpse at the large antechamber beyond, there was something there, something large red. He just couldn't discern its shape, not yet, but he'd reach it this time. He was determined nothing would wake him before he made it, so it came as something of a surprise when he did. Crashed into the room beyond the corridor at last to finally find. Hot, fetid breath washed over his face. Teeth, lots of teeth, more than he could possibly count. Shit. What the hell is that? Reverse course. Stop! Naruto slammed himself to a halt, water spraying up at his ankles. There was no other word for the creature looming before him, nor the toothy maw looming before him, the body connected to it. More so gods, it just didn't end sprawled in the darkness like some kind of great god. It didn't make any move to attack. Worse, the beast didn't appear to be terribly interested in him. If anything, it seemed to be asleep. He wasn't sure if he should be appalled or relieved. It was just laying there in the darkness, snoring softly. There was something familiar about it, as though he'd found a long-lost friend. An itch started in the back of his head. Wake up. Not this time, you bastard, Naruto growled. Who the hell are you? Wake up. I said no, goddammit. He grit his teeth. Who are you? Why do you keep bringing me here? I said wake up. Now that aggravating itch ignited into full-blow pain, causing him to snarl and clutching at his aching skull. His boot shot out and kicked the creature right in the snout. Oh, for crying out loud. Pay attention to me, damn it. With that, he got his wish, though he'd soon regretted. A massive crimson eye snapped open to regard him in the black. Naruto sucked in a sharp breath through his teeth. His own reflection gazed back at him within that bloody iris, his own face, and yet not warmer. Without his faunus traits, with less scars and a strange metal headband wrapped around his forehead. Then that terrifying eye blinked, and the image was gone, replaced by the giant freaking fox right in his face. Its voice was thunder in his ears. You're not ready. Wait, what the hell does that? Then a giant crimson paw came crashing down upon his head, and he knew no more. 000, wake up. Naruto's eyes snapped open with a start, not from Emerald's voice, but the inhuman snarl that haunted that last moments of his dream just as well too, because not a heartbeat later a pair of pillows sailed toward his face. He grabbed at the first, only to blink when his hand passed through it like so much empty air. Not so the second. The second was anything but an illusion. It smacked him right on the nose and sent him tumbling out of bed with a roar. Like a startled Ursa. To his credit, he successfully evaded the third, snatched it up with his tail, and flung it back at her face. Hey! What the hell, Em? Shush! Her voice surged at him as he scrubbed sleep from his eyes. We worked our asses off to get out of that hole in vacuo. Do you have any idea how hard it was to forge all that bloody paperwork? His silver jacket sailed out and smacked him in the face as struggled upright, fingers wrapping around the red-streaked material. I'm not going back there because you slept in. Slept in for what? Naruto groaned, grumbling all the while. His mind reluctantly concluded its threat assessment, and concluded he wasn't in peril by the time he pulled on a pair of worn black jeans alongside a tattered saffron shirt. Right, one bed, a dirty window spilling shards of morning light into the room, walls of faded cream, and a carpet that hadn't been cleaned in months. This wasn't vacuo, this was Vale. More aptly, this was their apartment, the one they'd been renting for the better part of a week now in preparation for what was it again? Damn it, he'd forgotten. His bleary mind grasped at the details and they slipped through his fingers like so much rainwater. So what the hell was he forgetting? Catch! Devil's retribution whipped toward his head from the corner of his eye, and Naruto instinctively snagged his treasured and aptly named weapon out of the air, staggering a bit before the paired red and black blurs could whirl from his grasp to decimate a nearby wall. His fingers closed around the curved steel as he swung it onto each arm, feeling it hum pleasantly beneath his grasp as the heavy metal within absorbed the impact, sealing it away to be unleashed later. They weren't small. On the contrary, anyone else would have struggled just to wield one of them with both hands, and here that he could wield one to each wrist spoke of his strength. Donning his weapons always felt like coming home, or it would have if he hadn't nearly lost his head just now. He said as much. Watch it. You trying to kill me or something? Sorry. Emerald's head poked around the corner. Just get ready already, will you? Securing the twin circular great shields to each wrist and careful to check his reflection in their polish gave the young man's mind a moment to kick itself back into gear. He almost wished it hadn't. Pure Elysian steel shimmered back up at him, and he saw his eyes widen within. Oh right, that was today, wasn't it? Emerald had every right to be mad at him then. Sure enough, a tan teenage blur shot past him, shedding and donning clothes in a writhing whirlwind of brown and green. Come on! We're gonna be late for the hunter exam. Quick! Use your semblance to get us there. His ears twitched. What? No! I'm not some glorified teleporting taxi. I'll buy you a week's worth of ramen. She shot back. Blue eyes lit up. Done. Wait. Much to his annoyance, she stepped back when he approached and performed a quick spin. How do I look? Say what you would about her, but she certainly had a unique taste in fashion. Today's attire was much as it had always been, in that it consisted of a sand-worn white jacket alongside a shallow olive crop top and pants that hinted at the flowing curves. Beneath, white shorts flowed down into brown chaps that ended at her calves, and long belt wrapped to keep her weapons in a pouch. Thief's respite winked out at him for a moment as she presented her back to him, her hips swaying just so her hopeful expression. That silent desire for his approval melted any resistance he might have mustered. This was the girl he'd fallen in love with, the girl he'd sworn to become a hunter with, and she was asking him how she looked? He never stood a chance. Naruto swallowed thickly, suddenly struck by an inexplicable urge to kiss his longtime friend and bend her over a down boy. He ruthlessly slapped down his libido when it reared its ugly head. Alas, the same could not be said for his mouth, and a lone word tumbled out of his lips before he could think to hold himself back. Beautiful. No. Bad tongue. This was mutiny. M's face went red. Oh, she turned, twirling a strand of mint green hair in her finger. Is that so? Do my hair, would you? It wasn't a command, but a request, one he responded to nonetheless. Reaching around, Naruto plucked a hair tie from the dresser and helped her bind her flowing green locks into a loose ponytail. Under normal circumstances she preferred to wear it down, but he understood the need to make an impression. Emerald liked her hair. She'd taken to growing it out ages ago. He suspected it had something to do with a remark he'd made about it when they were children. Still, who was he to complain? She looked good, damn good at that, though he wasn't about to trust his tongue again. So he took a step forward again. Hold up. Her hand settled against his chest. His lips pursed in a thin line of displeasure. Now what? He wasn't expecting her to bury her head into his chest, wrap both arms around him, and inhale deeply. He fought down a pleasant shiver as her own scent rushed over him at such close proximity. It was near impossible to ignore. She smelled of shampoo and mint, all warm soft curves and toned muscle pressing against him. It felt nice. All things considered, she hadn't done this in a while, which left him utterly baffled as to why she had chosen to glomp him now. Weren't they running late already? Naruto croaked. What are you doing? She hummed happily into his chest. Just getting my fix. Naruto wrinkled his nose. Oh, a content emerald meant a mischievous emerald. This did not bode well for him. Or maybe it did bode well. Girls were confusing, and he knew Emerald better than most. He didn't much feel like pushing her off at the moment. In the end, Naruto gave in and wrapped an arm around her waist. Don't let go, alright? He warned. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. Scarlet eyes gleamed up at him. Let go. Of you? Never. And the world fell away. 000. Naruto didn't much like his semblance. It was the first, the one he was even now utilizing at this very moment, not the second that troubled him. All told, the second was suited to the skills he'd cultivated over the last 10 years. He'd learned to fight, and went through any means necessary to cover distances quickly when engaging any and all opponents. Even he knew how uncommon it was to possess such a unique ability. One powerful semblance such as Emerald's was rare to begin with, but two? Someone capable of wielding two separate semblances? That was unheard of. But he digressed. His first, not so aptly named Flash, allowed him and anyone in contact with him to travel between any point he had marked with ore-infused ink. A touch was all it took to mark something, and he could mark a lot before his reserves ran low on paper. It sounded like a perfect semblance, near instantaneous teleportation. Emerald had once equated it to something called fast travel from one of her video games. In combat it was particularly potent, not quite super speed, but something on another level entirely. The downside? Each jump was a blind one. All the world would turn bright and gold whenever Naruto used his semblance, and he often had little control of how he landed, nor could he see who or what was on the other side, until he'd already made the leap. As it were, longer jumps would leave him exhausted for days at a time. The more passenger, the more strain he would know. He tried jumping back to Vacuo once when he was younger. Once the return trip had left him with a raging fever, leaving an equally frantic Emerald to nurse him back to health. It wasn't something he was keen to try again. Fortunately, the apartment they'd rented with the last of their savings wasn't far from the academy. Unfortunately, their landing wasn't exactly gentle this time around. Emerald's arms tightened around him as reality snapped back into existence. Holding on for dear life, they didn't so much land as they did drop, because he placed the mark for his semblance just a little higher than he should have. Better for it to be high up and hard to reach as well as remove, than risk it being discovered and destroyed. Still, their landing was rather softly, all things considered. Not bad, hotshot, Emerald hummed, content in his arms. You stuck the landing this time without any problems. Good job, I'll say. A new voice crooned beneath them, causing the unlikely pair to jump. There's just one tiny little problem. Well, maybe not so tiny. Naruto and Emerald looked down as one, much to their dismay. A pair of black wire-rimmed aviator sunglasses stared back at them, framed by daring dark hair, and a young woman's rueful yet pained smile. Well, that much was to be expected, given they were all but sitting on her stomach and pinning her to the ground. A beat of silence passed between the trio, then another still. Hello, there, their victim groaned, patting Naruto's tail. Could you get off me, please? The blonde spun upright with a mortified yelp, pulling his partner with him. Sorry. Caramel-colored eyes regarded them as she climbed to her feet. Well, you didn't have to do it that fast. Something in Emerald bristled as she laid eyes on the girl. The newcomer, whom she solemnly swore to refer to as Sunglasses henceforth, had a unique taste in fashion, for that was exactly what the brunette seemed to be wearing. The latest designer brands from Atlas to Veil, and a long cocoa-colored shirt with dark brown trousers with ribbons and a waist cincher to match. For some strange reason she had a number of cartridges slung into her belt, along the length of her hips, alongside a long drape of black skirt hanging on her right side, and of course she had to top off the look with a pair of dark brown, high-heeled leather boots with more buckles. Did this girl had a fetish for buckles and ammo belts or something? Worse, Naruto seemed to have taken it into his head to give her a once-over. You're not hurt, are you? We landed pretty hard. Don't sweat it, hot stuff, Sunglasses hummed, dusting herself off. It's not every day I get double-teamed. Emerald bridled anew at the insinuation. Who the hell are you? Sunglasses sketched a shallow bow. Coco Adele, aspiring huntress at your service. She paused with a touch of flair, straightened, and touched a finger to her smirking lips. At least I will be once I ace this test. Say, that's a nice semblance you've got there. Whiskers, her head tilted, regarding something over his shoulder. Teleportation, right? Haven't seen one like that before. Must be useful. She flashed a wink at him. Can I keep you? Naruto nearly choked on his own tongue, and Emerald was only a beat behind. What? Kidding, I'm kidding. She laughed. Naruto blinked, ears flatting against his head. So how did you? Well, I was looking at that before the two of you came dropping in. The now named Coco waved up at the black seal mark had Naruto placed on the wall, and sure enough their gaze followed hers. He'd marked a random patch of stone on the academy grounds. Not very smart in hindsight, but he hadn't been thinking at the time mistakes were made. With a thought, he leaped up and slammed his palm against the mark to banish it. Well, I was wondering who had the balls to slap graffiti up there. Coco paused to plant a hand on her hips as she tilted her shades down, exposing those bright eyes again. You've got stones. Kid, what's your name? Naruto, surely there wasn't any harm in telling her that was there? Foreign, her grin blossomed anew. I like that. Emerald didn't. Something ugly had reared its head in her heart the moment she laid eyes on this girl, and now it bared its teeth like an angry dragon in the face of this unprecedented threat. Was this jealousy? She wondered if it was. Emerald had never experienced the like before. She'd spent years honing her skills alongside her partner, trained up her semblance to the point that it was the literal equivalent of a mindfuck. As they traveled the world together, moving to Vale and trying to become hunters had been her choice as much as his. The life of a thief was a poor one, and they'd wanted something better than vacuo. Atlas had been a rude awakening. Damn Naruto and his curiosity. Why did he have to steal those shields? And now, on the first day of what was to be their new life, someone sauntered in and said things to him Emerald would never dare speak aloud. Already she felt the beginnings her semblance start to sizzle in response to her stress. It wasn't that this girl was pushy. On the contrary, she walked a fine line between sense and snark, navigating that tender tightrope with ease. She was just so full of personality. Under any other circumstance, Emerald was certain they would have gotten along swimmingly, but now that personality that was directed toward Naruto, her Naruto, he didn't even seem to realize it. Fielding her endless questions as he did, well, she could change that, couldn't she? Just a thought, a bit of focus on Coco, and her semblance would do the rest. Not Naruto. He'd see what she was up to right away. Better to startle her rival then. Her mind actually rebooted for a moment, causing the girl to blink. Reality slapped her. Oh god, she had a rival on her first day. Right, that did it. She was pissed. Naruto sensed something amiss immediately. He knew it by the chill that shot down his spine. Just as he saw Emerald's red eyes begin to brighten, she was about to unleash her semblance. A tell so minuscule that only he saw it. And even then that slip of knowledge was born from spending years together. No one else could possibly notice. Frankly, it was something of a miracle that he did, likely because he'd been exposed to it time and time again in the last decade. So long as she didn't catch him when he was half asleep, he could always tell fact from fiction. Hey, now, which was precisely why he slipped in and laid a hand on M's shoulder before she could do anything untoward to Coco. We're all friends here, are we? Emerald's smile was a touch too sweet. I can't recall. Coco caught it too, because she hefted her purse over a shoulder. Wait, was that thing a purse? Emerald wondered. It looked more like a briefcase. Was that supposed to be her weapon? Beggars couldn't be choosers, she supposed. But now the look the girl was shooting them looked almost coy, by comparison. Wait, are you two? She made a motion with her fingers. Together? Naruto frowned. Not like that. So you're free for the taking then? Good to know. Thankfully, someone intervened before Emerald could throttle her. Oh gods, a distant voice cried out in meek dismay. Coco, what did you do this time? The brunette's head snapped to the side as the rapid sound of footfalls approached. Nothing. Bun, just making new friends. HY. Don't drag me. Not another one. We're already late. Came the whine. We don't have time for friends. Sure enough, a brown blur latched onto the fashionista and promptly began to haul her off. Emerald was half inclined to let her never mind being late. Losing a few minutes was more than worth it. If she meant she could distance herself from this girl, she would have gotten away with it too. If Naruto hadn't seized the opening and snagged her by the wrist, dragging him forward after them at a brisk pace, the illusionist tried to dig her heels in, to no avail. Traitor! A bland look silenced her. Oh, hush, we're going the same way. This here's Velvet Scarlatina, Coco said by way of greeting as they caught up. Don't mind her, she's shy. The girl offered a meek wave. Hello. Emerald immediately realized the newcomer was a fauness, if only because of her rabbit ears. By contrast, her doe-like eyes made her seem almost harmless. Clad in a brown long-sleeved jacket that wrapped down around her chest over her shirt, she wore golden spalders and vambraces on both arms, with a similar belt, and her heel and toes were likewise defended. Her leggings were more of the same. But by then Emerald had already dismissed her as harmless. If Coco was an alpha predator, then this one was a harmless little bunny by comparison. No pun intended. Didn't mean she had to like the way the girl was looking at Naruto. You're a fauness? Much to her chagrin, the blonde preen ears gave it away. Huh? Velvet's own perked up. And no. Not at all. It's just, I couldn't help but notice your tail. Fluffy, right? Coco reached out to brush a hand through the golden fur, causing the whiskered warrior to jolt. Stop that! He hissed, swatting her hand. Oh ho, sensitive are we? The brunette waggled a brow at him. Makes sense. I guess Velvet's kinda the same way with her ears and all. Coco, what? Just being honest. Emerald wanted nothing to do with that conversation, but a thought occurred to her, and she seized on it as they walked. Why were you running late? Velvet's ears drooped at the distraction, and the poor girl suddenly looked like someone had kicked her puppy. Coco's fault, not mine. I needed my coffee, okay? The brunette flung up her hands. That veil slop is disgusting. What's your excuse? Naruto and Emerald exchanged a wry, knowing look. Don't you dare. The latter willed at him. Slept in. The former confessed immediately, scratching the back of his head. Seriously? Coco guffawed right back. Didn't take you for the type. I'm not. Naruto sniffed. His prided wound kept me up. Emerald stomped on his foot, drawing a whine. Why? No reason. She stuck her tongue at him. In short order the unlikely quartet bustled their way to Beacon with a few other latecomers, all the while Emerald prayed she'd never see Coco or Velvet again, that they'd simply go their separate ways and be done with one another. No more interruptions, no more new faces. It was a simple wish. She thought surely the gods would grant it. The gods laughed at her. She knew at the moment her shoulder clipped someone who wasn't Naruto. To be fair, it wasn't Emerald's fault. She'd been clinging to his arm and hadn't gone out of her way to bump into anyone deliberately. Someone had tried to bull past them and wound up, clipping her. Instead she glimpsed red hair and a pair of broad shoulders out of the corner of her eye before she wrenched her head back. Nope, not doing it, not interacting with whoever the hell that was. She didn't want to people anymore today. Her first instinct was to clamp down on her tongue, lest she draw even more attention to themselves. Hey! Leave to her partner to raise his voice. Watch where you're going. The redhead turned and Emerald glimpsed a frown set in a pale face. It was a young man, thank the gods, clad almost entirely in black. It made his slim figure and sharp eyes all the more striking. Wait, was that a sword at his belt? My apologies. His voice was crisp and brisk, as though he were reciting lines from a script. I wasn't paying attention. The tension in his shoulders and the death grip on his weapon told another story. He looked fit to burst at any moment. Indeed, when his gaze found Naruto and Velvet, he almost looked as though he would speak further. Only then did he deign to finally look at her and Coco. Whatever the stranger saw between the four of them must have calmed him somehow, because those stern eyes softened and his hand fell from the hilt of his sword. You gonna say something else, Angsty? Coco arched an eyebrow as she tapped her foot. Her quip almost made Emerald smile. What was it with this girl and her nicknames? The swordsman blinked, somewhat taken back by her blasé tone. Shaking his head, he muttered something and strode away. Emerald followed him, the faintest frown on her lips. It sounded almost like he'd said acceptable. Who the hell was that? Naruto shrugged. Who knows? They continued on in companionable silence after that and soon arrived at their destination. No sooner did they reach the academy grounds than they found themselves bundled together and crammed into the auditorium like a pack of sardines. Emerald wasn't surprised to see a microphone awaiting on stage. Well, that settled her suspicions. Someone would be giving a speech. She realized with a pang of dread perhaps it was the vacuo girl in her. But she loathed speeches. They were flowery and a waste of time. Actions were what mattered. Now pretty words on stage. Any attempt on her part to slip away was ruthlessly thwarted as the bodies pressed in tightly around her and her companions, pinning them in place. Coco and Velvet all crushed in against them. Bastards, why had she agreed to become a huntress again? When a hand found her shoulder, she almost jumped. Breathe. Naruto's voice was a warm breath in her ear. We're not in any danger here. Emerald squirmed, suddenly aware of just how close they were to each other, and not at all disliking it. I hate speeches, she grumbled, flicking a glare over her shoulder. You know that there's no point to them. Maybe not. Her partner favored her with a roguish grin, but his eyes narrowed when he saw her hand stray towards Coco's pocket. We're not thieves anymore, She wilted. Sorry, old habits die hard. His chin settled on her shoulder. They do, don't they? Emerald felt a slow blush heat the back of her neck. What are you doing? Getting comfy, came the yawn. Something tells me we're gonna be here a while. What? Don't fall asleep on me. She shook herself to throw him off. I know what you're doing. You're trying to distract me. Blue eyes twinkled merrily. It worked, didn't it? Sure enough, by the time she turned back to the stage, a smartly dressed man clad in black with pale hair, Ozpin, Naruto whispered to her, had already stepped up to the mic. Coughing into his fist, he commanded their attention. I'll keep this brief. I see many of you here before me today, some from Altus, Mistral Vale, and even Vacuo. Naruto and Emerald perked up when that bespectacled gaze raked over them. Whatever your backgrounds, whatever your past, you have traveled here in search of knowledge to hone your craft and acquire new skills. He paused for effect, waiting for his words to sink in. And when you have finished, you plan to dedicate your life to the protection of the people. As I look amongst you now, I see the potential for greatness, but also wasted energy in need of purpose and direction. Coco sneezed, but still Ozpin continued. You assume knowledge will free you of this, but your time at this school will prove that knowledge will only carry you so far. His gaze swept over each of them. From a slight-looking girl bearing a whip, a stunning young woman clad in a sinfully sensual red dress. It is up to you to take the first step, and in that, I wish you well. With that, he stepped aside and a woman in white stepped forth to take his place. You will gather in the ballroom tonight, she instructed, keen eyes boring into each of them in turn. Tomorrow your initiation begins. Until then, you are free to move about the campus as you see fit. Dismissed. Sounds like quite the wait, Emerald groused. I'll say, someone grumbled. She thought in Naruto's voice, but when she turned, she found a boy with silver hair and leather armor waiting for her. What? Where the devil had her partner gone? Red eyes flicked left, then right to no avail. Somewhere in between the speeches, the press of bodies had parted and they'd been separated. He wasn't anywhere to be seen, nor were Coco or Velvet at that. Where had they gone? I'm sorry, she muttered, trying to excuse herself from the mess she'd fallen into. I thought you were someone else. I get that a lot. Mercury Black, the silver-haired youth, beamed and offered his hand. Nice to meet ya. Emerald twitched, not out of any dislike for the silver-haired boy but something else. She'd always been able to read people. Even as a little girl, if a thief didn't know how to read their mark, said thief didn't live long. It was a mistake she made once when she was little. Once, never again. Ever since she'd ever kept her guard up, and something about him made a silent voice in the back of her head hiss, so she refused his hand and stepped back half a pace, then another, and another still. Sorry, she said, I don't shake hands with strangers. Mercury arched a demure eyebrow. What's wrong? Scared? Emerald bristled. Of you? Hardly. She was terrified. I didn't. Come on, Naruto's voice called somewhere behind her. We've gotta get ready. Where the hell did you go, Red Eyes? Of course, that was Coco again. Right, they're looking for me, she sighed, relieved. Gotta go. Perhaps should have hesitated, should have watched him. Instead she turned, dismissing him in her haste. She missed the leer Mercury shot at her back. See you around. Naruto and Emerald's little partnership had a ripple effect, one that we finally get to dive into within this chapter. Amber is out and about in the world, visiting Beacon on occasion. Cinder never got her. We'll see her again, though her role will be different. This chapter has some surprise guests. To clarify once more from last chapter, Cinder, Mercury, Ilya, and Adam are all attempting to infiltrate Beacon. 2 of them want to cause havoc. 2 of them are searching for someone. As to how 2 members of the Bloody White Fawn haven't been noticed? Like Cinder and Mercury, the authorities don't really know what Ilya looks like, much less Adam with his disguise that. And Ozpin really isn't the most attentive when it comes to catching criminals in his school. I'm going to throw my weight behind the point that Adam can fight Cinder fairly without maiden powers, without those at her back and call. She wouldn't be able to force him to her side. Adam is very much working for himself in this story. I wouldn't put it past Cinder to try something. But in a fair fight Adam could likely hold his own, if not win more so with capable fighters like Ilya backing him up. On another note, Adam hasn't sustained a scar in this story. His character is a bit more complex here. Spoilers for Naruto's semblance follow. Skip if you want to avoid being spoiled. Someone compared Naruto's semblance to Snatch from 7 Deadly Sins. I didn't realize I'd done that. Haven't watched SDS or read the manga in years. Ban doesn't need to touch anyone to swipe their strength. He has a hard upper limit. Nor is he able to retain that power indefinitely, right? Thankfully, I can safely say that Reaper's touch is a different beast. While Naruto is forced to make some sort of physical contact with his enemy, there's no limit to what he can and can't take. But there's a risk of using it too much. He can't suck someone dry all at once. It takes time and repeated, sustained contact. But the more hits he gets in, the longer he holds on, the more strength he steals. For instance, our boy can keep and stockpile the strength his swipes and give to others, or even use it to heal. However, should he overdose, there's a chance of him going haywire. The human brain isn't built to take that kind of strain. Should he manage to kill someone with it, be it accidental or intentional, there's a chance he might steal their semblance, their very soul, as it were, and you wonder why he doesn't want to use it. That, my dear readers, is how he acquired Flash to begin with. He killed someone and unwittingly gained their ability. I wanted to avoid saying it, but there you are. Furthermore, if it isn't abundantly clear by now, Emerald's semblance has been sharpened to Sharingan levels of pain. Give her enough time, and she can literally render you brain dead. That applies to Grim as well, of course. Using this devours her stamina. And that does it for the plot points everyone's been asking about. Pull up a seat, and as always, I hope you enjoy. You were merciful. Why? I wouldn't call that beating merciful. He still lives. That, in itself, implies mercy. Alright, that settles it. You need some friends, Adam. I have no need of such, and you're not going to let this go, are you? Bah. I've converted my worst enemies into the best of friends. Now sit down. Adam and Naruto, butting heads. And so it went. Evening came with brutal swiftness, leaving Naruto and Emerald crammed into the auditorium with the rest of the aspiring applicants. As they awaited the dawn, it hadn't been quite so bad in the beginning. Sure, they were all forced to give up their weapons and store them away in lockers. But that was merely a formality for those who had come this far. Naruto wanted to hope that things would only get better from here. When you started at the bottom, there was nowhere left to go but up, right? He'd wholeheartedly believed that. That is, until Coco hunted them down. Gods, the girl had a nose like a bloodhound. Looking good, whiskers. Naruto didn't yelp when she slapped his arse, the impact shuddering right through his black and orange pajamas. He absolutely did not yelp. Yelping implied weakness. Weakness meant fear. Fear lent credence to the theory that he was afraid of the unholy, unfiltered, caffeinated terror known as Coco Adele, which she wasn't. Not at all. His tail, now wrapped tight around his waist to stay well out of her grasp, did not quiver with fear when she started to lay her sleeping bag next to his. Nope, not in the least. His legs weren't shaking from fear. It was excitement. Yes, that was it, because he was so excited to be here. Not afraid, not at all. Oh, who was he kidding? The girl was voracious. Hey! Emerald swooped in as he tumbled back. Hands off. Oh? You got dibs on him, Mint? Coco planted a hand on her hip and lowered her shades. Even in pajamas, she still cut a taut figure in her nightwear. Probably because she'd opted for a simple sleeveless black shirt and coffee-colored hot pants. For some reason she was still wearing that damn beret and her sunglasses. Sunglasses? At night? Who did that? Coco did. In her head she decided that the 4 of them were going to be a team. Screw initiation, screw Ozpin, screw the test. That was a done thing. No objections. They tried to say otherwise, but the girl simply said denied their denial. And oh gods, she'd just given Emerald a nickname. My name is Emerald. The girl's nose wrinkled in mild distaste. She didn't deny the claim. Yes, it is, and thy nickname shall henceforth be Mint. Coco grinned, rocking back on her heels. Why Mint? The dark-skinned girl flung up her arms with a startled squawk. What about me looks minty? The dark-haired girl tiled her head. Well, your hair. Of course, I thought it would be obvious. You all right there, Mint? Rarg. Naruto nimbly plucked his partner out of the air before she could claw Coco's eyes out. Then he pulled her down into his lap in a single fluid movement. Naturally, the little hellcat fought him every step of the way, spitting and squirming and struggling for her freedom until he finally placed his hands on her shoulders and began to work. His magic Emerald's body turned to jelly beneath his palms, her anger all but forgotten as she collapsed against him. It was just a simple back rub, nothing more, nothing less. But if there was one thing Emerald Sustrai valued in this world, it was these hands. What was it with women and massages? So Coco drawled as she watched him contain Emerald. Where are you two from? Vacuo. Originally Naruto supplied the answer easily enough. There was no harm in telling her that we got out of there the first chance we could. So, Whiskers and Mint, from Vacuo. She beamed, taking a seat across from them. Sounds like the title of a crime drama. She was just full of personality, this one. This is going to be a recurring theme with you, isn't it? Naruto fixed the brunette with a flat look over his partner's shoulders as Emerald wriggled helplessly in his grasp. You just have to give everyone nicknames. The latter tried to speak, but her words turned to gibberish as he found a sensitive spot in her back. All that emerged was a pleased purr. It's the little things in life, Whiskers. Coco agreed. Speaking of which, she held out her arms. Me next? Risking a glance for his partner, Naruto found blazing red eyes gazing back. Nope. He very much valued his life. I don't think that's wise. Party pooper. When met with Coco, Emerald's choice of sleepwear was almost tame by comparison. She'd chosen a baggy mint-colored shirt and a loose pair of black sweats. Naruto approved of her choice. Baggy clothes helped you hide weapons for days. Vacuo had taught them both many a harsh lesson when they were children, but if there was one that had stuck with them, it was thus always keep a weapon on you. Always part of the reason he chosen long sleeves tonight in spite of the season. He tried not to think about what Emerald was hiding under her baggy clothes tonight. She'd crawled into his lap enough when they were little that he'd become inured to it, so long as he didn't overthink things anything like that, and he was bound to get a knife in the groin. No, this wasn't Vacuo, and they couldn't go around shanking anyone who annoyed them, not anymore. So when his friend made a quick slicing gesture across her throat, Naruto subtly shook his head. Rather than make the gesture again, she threw her semblance at him, leaving his ears buzzing in the form of a small voice only he could hear. It was a far cry from telepathy, but it was an excellent way of conveying messages between them. Can I kill her? He shook his head harder. Please? Just a little? She'll never know. Naruto forbore the urge to groan. And how do you plan to do that? Do what? Coco's shit-eating grin told all, and he realized he'd spoken aloud. Ugh. Nothing. Naruto fought down a sigh. You do realize we might not be on the same team, right? Nothing certain yet. Once again, the brunette laughed his fears away. Don't you worry your little ears about that. Whiskers, your family now might as well accept it. Is it too late to run away? Not a chance. Emerald hissed in his ear and clamped down on him. If I have to suffer, so do you. Naruto grimaced as he fought down the urge to bolt. There was a certain irony to be had in all things, and tonight's suffering was no exception by rights. He and Emerald shouldn't been here. They'd gone through hell and back to forge their paperwork, with money and dubious use of her semblance alike somehow. Said paperwork that had stood the test of time, which meant it had either gone through seamlessly, or the old headmaster hadn't bothered to glance at their papers before approving them and sending them on their way. And how likely was that? Really? Flailing, he looked around and grasped for a new subject. Ironically, he found it in someone's absence. Say, where did Velvet run off to? Coco blinked. I don't. Please stop. Emerald swore. Velvet whimpered. Naruto sucked in a sharp breath through his teeth. At first, the trio genuinely didn't understand what they were looking at when they rounded on the sound. If only because you'd have to be an utter fool to even attempt something like this, least of all where everyone could see you. There were teachers watching, at least. There should have been, but when they turned to look, they found no one beyond aspiring hunters and huntresses, each and every one of whom were presently at the singular spectacle before them. 7 words summed it up nicely for Naruto. Why is that bastard pulling her ears? That would be Cardin. Winchester. Coco sighed, planting her face in a palm with a long-suffering sigh. Bigot, racist, and all-around asshat supreme. He's about a year younger than us, but his pop's been a big donor to Beacon for decades now. Her lip curled in a snarl as the large boy tugged harder on Velvet. Daddy dearest probably leaned on the headmaster to get his baby boy admitted early. She paused, as though considering an ugly thought just then. Seems he brought some friends with him. Is that allowed? Ethically? No, technically? Yes. Coco rubbed her fingers together. Money talks. Whiskers, the more you have, the louder you can shout. She flicked her beret off and spun it on a finger. As they looked on, rumor has it he wasn't the only one who got bumped up a grade this year. Rumor has it we've got a celebrity among us. Aren't you going to do anything to help your friend? Nah. The beret flew in his face. Bunbun's got this. Just you wait. She's vicious in a fight. The pained whimper that followed sounded anything but vicious. Gods above, that sounded like it hurt. Emerald flicked Naruto the merest of glances, her head tilting just so in the corner of his eye. Red eyes gleamed. Should I? Her semblance slipped between the two of them in a whisper only he could hear. I could stop him if you want me to. Naruto considered it would be the simplest thing for her to unleash her semblance here. Cardin and his cronies were well within range and Emerald looked about as angry as he felt. No, worse than that, she wouldn't hold back. Hell, she'd probably scare the pants off the boy and end this without raising a fist. Velvet would surely be able to escape in the chaos that followed. It might even put a big dent in the brute's bullying for a while at least, but it wouldn't stop, not for good. That said, he didn't want to reveal their trump card for something like this. Stop it! Velvet whined. Naruto felt a muscle jump in his jaw. He knew the man's type the moment Cardin thought he could get away with it. Bam! This would start all over again with another victim. One they might not see, one they might not be able to help. Even now a sea of faces stared at the scene, but none made any move to intervene. Naruto watched some of the more notable faces in turn, waiting to see if any would act. He saw an absolute giant of a man looming by the window, a mere slip of a girl who barely came up to the latter's chest, and a sinful beauty with dark hair. Oh, some of them grimaced at the girl's plight, but no one said a word, not a word. No, in the end, he shook his head at his partner. Let me handle it. Emerald tumbled out of his lap and patted his knee, freeing him to move. Hey, wait. Coco grabbed at his wrist when he stood. Velvet's tough, she can handle herself. If your friend could handle herself, Naruto rounded on her with a hiss, she would have gotten away from him by now. Come on, just let him go already, will you? Emerald stifled a yawn with the back of her hand. No one's going to help her if we don't. She's right, I'm not going to hurt Cardin. The blonde shook free with a growl. I'm just going to talk to him alone, loudly, repeatedly, with my fists. That's the same thing, Coco cried. Naruto didn't listen to whatever else she might have said. He was already away and across the room, ignoring any and all attempts to call him back. His vision tunneled as he stalked forward, adrenaline keying his pulse up to a frantic pace, pulse pounding in his ears like the drums of a great hunt. As he stalked toward the threat, his mind assessed the threat even as his fingernails sharpened into claws. Responding to his stress, his semblance began to twitch. For once, he didn't stamp it down, he unleashed it, and TT surged through him like a wave of molten fire, tinging his blue eyes the faintest shade of scarlet. For a moment, his anger began to balk. Was he going to fear? Maybe words would be enough, maybe. Think the carpet matches the drapes? Cardin crowed the words with a bawdy laugh. Ha! Someone sneered back. Who knows? They all look alike, right? Nope, that did it. He chose violence, loud, angry violence. Cardin Winchester was a big fellow, standing a good head taller than most, well muscled enough to fill out those hideous red pajamas he wore. He'd fought bigger. Even if this one wasn't alone, at least 3 others. Were they friends? Stood nearby the brute, each laughing with him at Velvet's plight. It made his blood boil and made them enemies 4 against 1? Naruto liked those odds made things. Even he didn't have a plan. There was no need for one. No, wait, he told a lie. He did have a plan. Rip and tear. Velvet saw him coming with wide eyes, her head still jerked painfully aside, her ears perked in Cardin's grasp. Silent steps carry Naruto the last few feet, as his right arm arced upward. Would you care to repeat that, you son of a bitch? And clamped down on Cardin's right shoulder. It took but a second to lay a mark there. Then he squeezed hard. Physical contact was all but required for Reaper's touch to take hold on someone. Just so for Flash, be a punch or a simple grab. So long as Naruto got a hold of someone with his hands and held on, they were his. It was like drinking a glass of water spiked with caffeine. You could take a sip, or drink the whole thing. Whatever he took became his. Energy to be burned at his leisure. He could even wield his semblance in reverse and bleed the energy he stockpiled right back into a victim to heal them. Left alone, it was a subtle, insidious semblance, like taking tiny drops from a puddle. But Cardin wasn't a puddle, he was a lake, and an aspiring huntsman at that. As such, he had energy to burn. Naruto didn't hold back, and the boy's face went ashen. Hey! Cardin flailed at him. Let go of me. 3 seconds. It took Cardin precisely that amount of time to bat his hand away and stumble to safety. More than enough. By then Naruto had all he needed and more. He'd already marked him. He couldn't simply knock this kid out in front of everyone. Cathartic as that might be, no, that wouldn't do. Not at all. An example must be made in vacuo. The strong thrived and the weak died. Just the thought made his ears twitch. Let's see how Cardin liked being the weakling for a change. Russell, Dove, Sky. Perhaps realizing his peril, the brute jerked Velvet back as his friends, more of a posse, really came to his aid. Get a load of this. Another freak. When she tried to lash out at him, he only pulled all the harder, drawing an angry hiss from the brunette. First a rabbit, not a fox. They're crawling out of the woodwork today. Show off. Emerald's semblance-enhanced voice buzzed in his head. Naruto shrugged in a way that would made Mercury proud. Sure enough, Cardin's boys crowded around him, one with blue hair, the other a plain bowl cut, and a third with a green mohawk. Of all things, he didn't bother to remember their names. They didn't matter, nor did their mob mentality. It was almost sad. Really, nobody cared if you were a faunus and vacuo. If you could survive, you were welcome. Times like these almost made the White Fang seem like the wait. They were talking to him, weren't they? He'd all but tuned them out. Nice tail. Blondie Mohawk jeered and prodded his cheek. Naruto twitched. Must not kill, not even a little. Did the fox come to save the rabbit? Dove tugged at his ear. And maybe he wants to eat her. Sky's was the worst by far, beyond compare. Velvet kicked out at them. Just let go. Really? Naruto felt his mouth twitch into a smile. It wasn't a pleasant one. Really? We're using those cliched lines now? Then he flickered. Cardin never saw him coming. He wasn't even aware of the mark Naruto had left on his shoulder until the blonde barreled into him from above. With his left hand the blonde lashed out and brought 5 taut fingers down on the wrist holding Velvet captive. A brief targeted touch that caused the muscles there to spasm. In a moment of weakness Cardin jerked around and swiped at him with his free hand. But rather than waste the energies he'd acquired for himself, Naruto stepped into the larger boy's guard and thrust an open palm beneath the bully's chin. Cardin's head snapped back with an audible grunt, stunned by the blow and unable to maintain his fist, much less his footing. The boy finally lost his ironclad grip on Velvet's ears. Mission accomplished. With that, he no longer need hold back. A right hook crashed into the callous boy's chin and sent him tumbling backwards into his friends like a bowling ball. Somewhere behind him, Naruto heard Coco's scroll click as it took a picture strike. It almost made him smile until he realized Cardin's captive hadn't budged an inch. Velvet, what are you doing? Move! When she didn't react to his words, he swept his right arm out and grabbed his fellow faunus by the waist, hauling her behind him. That snapped her out of it. The brunette didn't so much dart as she did tumble behind his back. He felt firm fingers dig into his skin as she latched onto him, followed by the faintest weight as her chin came to rest on his shoulder, and her arms wrapped around his chest for a fleeting instant. Her hair tickled his nose and he balked at her. She wasn't. No, she actually was using him as a human shield while she clung to him like some silly monkey. Oh gods, why were her pajamas so thin? Thanks. Don't thank me, Naruto hissed. Why didn't you fight back? Her ears drooped as she turned her head away. I didn't want to cause a scene. Movement danced in the corner of his vision. They're getting up, let me handle this. Reluctantly, the rabbit did as she was bade and disengaged a few paces. You little shit! Cardin might have said something else as he clambered upright. His mouth certainly moved. Naruto didn't listen, trusting to his instincts. Sure enough, the boy gave in to his anger and rushed him like a bull. Sloppy. It took the work of an instant to duck a wild haymaker, slip into his guard, and sweep his legs. Cardin toppled like a tree. One of his allies, the Mohawk fellow, tried to flank him and received a bitter backhand for his efforts. Why did he think that would work? He was standing right there. Didn't they have any semblance of strategy? On your left, Emerald semblance buzzed in his ear. Sure enough, someone grabbed his tail. Naruto blew out a sigh. Really? Not so tough now, are ya? He drove a vicious mule kick into their groin without looking so much as looking backward. Whomever it was, Sky, perhaps, released him and toppled to the floor with a pitiful croak. 3 down, 1 to go. He found the final one, trying to help Cardin up. Fair enough, time to wrap this up. Surely one of the teachers must have noticed the commotion by now. If they hadn't, they weren't doing a very good job. If Cardin was foolish enough to pick a fight after all that, he'd get every bit of what was coming to him. Clearing his throat, Naruto coughed but once. I'll say this one time, cut the bullying. He spoke clearly and calmly, raising his voice to be heard as he approached his fellow applicant and his fallen friends. Do that, and I'll pretend this never happened. Bit of a white lie, that one. But Cardin didn't need to know what he was in for later. This doesn't need to escalate any further. Let's have bygones be bygones. He offered his hand in friendship. Cardin Winchester spat right in his face. Naruto twitched. Right then, you had your chance. Coco, Emerald and Velvet watched in quiet silence at what followed, their heads tilted near horizontal to follow each and every movement. Mercury sauntered over, saw the disaster, and paused to whistle softly. Damn, didn't know you could bend the human body that way. Looks painful. Coco snapped. Another picture, I'll say. Naruto stormed back with sound and aplomb, Velvet cradled in his arms like a princess of yore. If the latter made a quiet keening noise between her teeth, no one dared comment on it. If she looked absolutely fit to burst from embarrassment, they didn't dare speak of it. They didn't look at her face either. Her cheeks were just as red as her name before she buried her head in his chest. Nobody messes with our bunny. He'd only just set her down when Cardin called out to him, you're the one who escalated things, freak. We didn't do anything wrong, is that so? Naruto stood and tilted his head as Coco wrapped her arms around Velvet with a dark glower. You started this when you started harassing my friend. Velvet perked up imperceptibly, ears standing at attention, bright eyes flitting back and forth. Friend? She was asking for it. Cardin shot back, that damn bunny bitch didn't know her place. The entire auditorium inhaled sharply. In hindsight, Naruto really shouldn't have risen to the bait. He knew it was a bad idea from the start. He knew Cardin was just being a bigot, just trying to goad him into a fight. He should have taken the high road like a sensible person, let the words roll right off his back. But the moment that brute opened his mouth, the moment he said those words, something snapped. He'd given him an out a chance to back down and save face, to make amends and improve himself as a person, and what had he done? Well, they'd all heard it, what he'd called poor, sweet, innocent Velvet. Oh? Naruto ground the words out as he stalked forward. Do my ears deceive me? You must have a death wish. Why, I think he does. Coco was only half a heartbeat behind him. I call dibs on the ugly one. They're all ugly. Emerald reluctantly followed. Idiots, both of you, huh? Velvet, could a sleeping bag make a cracking sound? Hers just had. Somebody get a shovel. You wanna throw down? Fine with us. Cardin started forward with a glower. His friends behind him were ready for round 2. There's 4 of us, and 3 one of you bunny bitch over there doesn't count. Velvet absolutely hissed. All traces of hesitation gone. You no good sleazy. Unfortunately, before Cardin could comprehend his imminent body peril courtesy of one very angry bunny girl, a heavy pillow sailed across over her shoulder. It was a good shot, one through with the utmost accuracy and grace. Raw speed and power personified. It struck him dead in the groin. All present parties blinked as his eyes crossed and his body bent double with the wheeze of a whimper. Nearly every boy and more than a few girls collectively winced at the withering wheeze that fled from his lips. Cardin Winchester did not squeak, no, certainly not. He definitely didn't crumple in on himself and cry for his mother. Everyone must have imagined it. Thus did the heroic sacrifice a lone pillow bring an end to what had been shaping up to be a vicious brawl. Coco hadn't thrown it. Emerald certainly didn't. Velvet blinked, ears drooping. Naruto looked over his shoulder. Well, he coughed, didn't see that one coming. Everyone followed his gaze. Soon enough all eyes turned toward the perpetrator. At a glance, she looked to be an awkward little thing wrapped in a bronze pair of pajamas. Still gangly and growing into her full height, her arm, even now still overextended from what might as well have been a full-body javelin toss for all the force behind it. She'd thrown the entirety of her tiny frame into that single motion. Scarlet hair framed a pale face from which eyes of pure jade shone. Her eyes even now widened with mortification as she realized what she'd gone. "I'm sorry," she wailed, hands flying to her face. "He was just being so rude and ah shit." Sky coughed, his face gone pale. "Is that freaking Pyrrha Nikos Gack?" Velvet whipped a pillow into his face, sending him sprawling. That drew everyone's attention to Cardin's remaining allies, suddenly far fewer in number, and without their leader both boys were left quite vulnerable. Just standing there, one of them made the rookie mistake of trying to retreat. He stepped backward just an inch. It was like blood in the water, and everyone else were the sharks. All eyes cut toward them. Someone began to chuckle. "What did you boys call that sweet girl?" A voice like Sin purred. "Bitch, I believe it was." Naruto felt the beginnings of a smile curl at the corner of his mouth as he looked toward the speaker. "Bunny bitch, that was the phrase." She smiled sensually at him, and a shiver shot up his spine as she stepped forward. "Gods, that gown was red." "Ah, yes, that was what they said. Quite rude, don't you think?" "Wow, was it hot in here or something?" Still, they were in agreement on that at least. When that gorgeous woman with her dark hair and burning amber eyes hefted a pillow of her own, it triggered an avalanche in the auditorium. Dozens of hands suddenly swooped down, snatching up sleeping bags, pillows, anything that came easily to hand. Just like that, Russell and Dove's measured retreat turned into a full-on rout. Alas, there was nowhere for them to run. The doors were quite locked, you see, and for some mysterious reason, their chaperone had yet to make an appearance. In the end, both boys were left flattened against the wall to await their fate. They had aura unless they might survive. "Might to war!" Coco cried. "Mercy?" One of hapless Mook's gulped. Naruto and Emerald exchanged a black look. "Nope." And with that, all the pillows descended with singular fluffy fury. Of course, that just left all the applicants to turn their pillows upon one another. Truly, it was a battle for the ages. The great pillow fight night would be a night not soon forgot. But of course, the first rule of pillow fight night goes without saying: you don't talk about pillow fight night. A reincarnated Naruto met Emerald as a child, and together, they went their own way in life naturally. Their actions produced ripples across the whole of Remnant, many of which we haven't seen. As a direct result of this, Cinder was unable to acquire Emerald, and thus, unable to strike down Amber. She was, however, able to recruit Mercury. Lacking the maiden powers, Cinder was unable to threaten Adam. Indeed, she didn't even think to do so given her lack of forces. This in turn freed up Adam to move as he wished and pursue Blake, who in turn did something incredibly foolish. Adam, in turn, did something even more boneheaded. I won't say what here, that'd be telling. Ozpin's more active in his machinations, trying his best to muster the next generation against Salem. Pyrrha came to Beacon a year early to get away from her fame and all the pain it brought her. Ozpin made her an offer. She jumped. I'm sure all know how keen he is to headhunt talent, and without the matter of the Fall Maiden to focus on, it stands to reason he'd be actively recruiting who he can, where he can, whenever he can. Cardin's father used his connections to get Cardin and his gang into Beacon early. That was a foolish, pig-headed decision. Ozpin allowed it. I won't say any more here for fear of spoiling things. Still, it seems little. Pyrrha was a hit with everyone. Though she's only a year younger than her canon self, who would have thought she'd be such a hit? Here we go. Votes have been tallied. Reviews have been counted. And the teams have been chosen. Remember, this is our boy reincarnated. His memories may come back. And we've obviously seen Kurama isn't as dead as we thought him to be. Oh ho, poor Remnant's not gonna have the best time of things if he wakes up. Minor verbatim for the initiation here, so in lieu of a longer author's note, read Asetko. This feels familiar, like I've seen this before, lived it before. Are you alright? Is it the headaches again? Should I tell the teachers? Nah, it's nothing, I'll be fine, it's just a migraine, it'll pass, always has, always will. Naruto and Emerald. Landing strategy. Ozma considered himself a man of tact. Perhaps that was arrogant of him, for tact implied adroitness or sensitivity in dealing with others and their issues. These days, he wasn't sure he held the capacity for it. Not as he once did. Even after all these years, some small part of him still quailed at the idea of sending children to fight monsters, even if they were heavily armed, absurdly strong teenagers with years of training. The act itself simply didn't sit well with his soul. Beacon had housed countless students before them, and likely would for generations to come, but it was always here, on the morning of initiation, that he felt his resolve waver. Ozma, or Ozpin as he'd come to be known in this life, was not an evil man, but felt he couldn't be called good either, not anymore. What manner of man sent others to die for him? A coward. He'd been called far worse slurs over countless lifetimes. Liar, deceiver, traitor, oath-breaker, and of course, murderer. His hands were drenched with blood, both of the lives he'd taken, and those he'd sent to their deaths. Knowing or otherwise, he still heard their voices sometimes, in his darkest moments. Damn you, how could you? They trusted you. There were so very many now he couldn't even remember all their faces, but the insults that followed, the slurs their loved ones hurled at him when he inevitably informed them of their demise, those were never far from his thoughts. Men, women and children alike, they all died while he lived on, again and again. So he bore each condemnation a heavy heart, knowing it to be true as the blue sky above. They'd been right. Of course he was all these things and more. He'd committed terrible atrocities in the name of peace, and would commit more still if it kept the world of remnants safe from her. He did what he did for the greater good. He fought for the greater good. He kept his secrets for the greater good always. The greater good. Today would no different. And so it was with a fresh cup of coffee that he awaited the students on the cliffs. Below him the emerald forest. He was sure one of the applicants found some irony there. Given her name awaited the rising sun. Still and silent as the grave. Ozpin knew it was not so. Already grim below grew restless and impatient. They knew what was to come today. As it came every year, even now the soon-to-be students would be rising in the auditorium. Soon they would wake, dress themselves, find their breakfast, secure their gear and march toward their destiny. They had a talented crop this year. More than he'd expected. They were certainly a diverse lot, if nothing else. You've made a number of exceptions this year, sir. Ah, and there was Glinda arriving now, punctual as ever. Truly, this woman was an absolute marvel. Would that he'd discovered her an age ago. He could have used someone like her in some of his earlier campaigns against Salem. Here was a bastion of order. Someone who brooked no nonsense under her watch by the brothers. He didn't know how he got anything done without her these days, unfortunately. That sword was something of a double-edged blade, in that it could cut both ways. Sometimes she deemed his designs questionable. No doubt she thought this one of them. Have I? The headmaster took a long sip from his mug. I wasn't aware of such. Ozpin. And which exceptions might those be? He mused, pointedly ignoring her glower against his back as he gazed down into the forest proper below. We have a number of notable students. This year I'm sure they'll become fine huntsmen and huntresses by the time they graduate. He barely batted an eyelash when the disciplinarian thrust the scroll against his face. Ah yes, this time he couldn't quite hide the smile against the images that stared back at them. Our little thieves from Bakua. What of them? You're aware their transcripts are forged. It wasn't a question, more an accusation than anything else. He didn't have to answer, because she already knew the answer. Of course he was aware of them. He'd personally signed off on the papers himself when they crossed desks. These two were clever, to be sure. No one could prove they'd committed those crimes, and they'd been careful to disguise themselves each time. Anyone else would have failed to find the clues they left behind. They'd hid Vacuo, Mistral, even Atlas, but not Veil. Never Veil. Despite their notoriety, they weren't wanted in this kingdom yet, which meant there must be something they wanted here badly, very badly indeed. He hadn't been surprised to see their papers on his desk. Naturally, what was the saying? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer? He felt that applied well here. You allowed this? The blonde rounded on him, incredulous. Ozpin, they're criminals. I did, and they are. The immortal squared his shoulders, knowing what was to come. This wasn't the first time Glinda had challenged his decisions, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. What of it? He turned to face her fully, his smile slipping into a frown. Make no mistake, I'm sure James would love to have a word with them, but for all their dastardly deeds, these criminals have yet to so much as harm a civilian. I dare say they've gone out of their way to avoid it thus far. Oh ho, there was the look. He knew what was coming next. That doesn't change the fact that they committed crimes. And yet they applied to our school knowing full well we might ascertain their identities. Ozpin interjected, leaning upon his cane. Does that not signify a desire to atone for their mistakes? Perhaps that was something of a white lie on his part. Those two had likely expected their forgeries to hold up in the face of any real scrutiny. For the most part they simply hadn't expected a wizard. Of course he wasn't about to admit that to Glinda. Doing so would give his old friend a foothold as well as a chance to force his hand, and if they were forced out, Salem may well snatch them up. That couldn't be allowed, not with skills and semblances like those. If they let go of them now, he was certain they'd never be seen again. Beacon needed that kind of strength, and his words were enough to allay Glinda's fears, though she didn't much like it. Indeed, she looked like she'd bitten into a particularly sour on a lemon, I suppose. Glinda was also many things, but at the end of the day she was naive. She believed in black and white, good and evil, when in reality the truth was more often gray. Ozpin's life was drenched in gray. Morally ambiguous decisions abounded in his storied lifetimes, none done with any true malice or spite, but once again, for hope of a better tomorrow. Then all's well that ends well. He patted her shoulder. Was there anything else you wanted to ask? As a matter of fact, yes. What of Miss Nikos? Glinda shook him off as her riding crop slapped into the palm of her hand with an audible smack, further heralding her agitation. Or Winchester and his little gang? Adam Taurus, Ilya Amatola, not to mention those two unknowns Lionheart recommended us, to say nothing of the other applicants. She paused, pinching the brow of her nose before continuing. What were you thinking? These children aren't heroes, Ozpin. They cannot possibly be expected to fight for one another, much less the greater good. Ozpin raised his mug to his lips once more, but the brew tasted sour. And what would you know of that, my dear? A stray thorn of guilt pricked at the old sage's heart, but he pushed past it. Of course Adam and Ilya were well known to him. They'd been the ones to approach him in the first place. They were hunting someone, and they had full reason to believe said someone was hiding among the new students here in Beacon. She was, of course, but he wasn't about to reveal that. Moreover, he would have been a fool to turn them away this way. The White Fang lost 2 of its most powerful members and Beacon gained the good press of trying to convert them both once more. It kept 2 potential pawns from Salem's grasp, and if they did turn violent, if either made a move against his students, he would not hesitate to cut them down. Miss Nikos was something of an unintended coup on his part. He honestly hadn't expected her to accept his offer to attend Beacon a year early, but except she had Cardin had been another unexpected boon, albeit less of an appealing one. His father had proven rather insistent on getting him admitted this year, and then the boy had dragged his friends along for the ride. Judging by last night's fiasco, those 4 were going to be something of a problem. Time would tell if they were ready. Still, Glinda was awaiting his response, and so, taking a deep breath, he schooled his face into a small smile. Time to play the fool once more. You're forgetting the Belladonna girl, he teased her gently. Oh, how silly of me. Her voice cracked like a whip and her hands shot up in exasperation. Why else would 2 members of the White Fang be looking for her? Who am I to refuse those who seek a second chance? Ozpin, stop being a fool about this. Glinda absolutely clenched her weapon. How riling her up usually worked. Instead she'd turned the tables on him. Quaint, was this what anger felt like? Frustration? He'd all but forgotten the feeling. It almost made him feel human again. I seem to recall a young girl who once lost her way. When next he spoke, the sage's voice held an unmistakable edge that hadn't been there before. One he felt for the first time in centuries. When everyone else gave up on her, I believed in her, helped her find way back from what she'd become. I wonder what she would have to say about this. Glinda went terribly still. We need hunters, Glinda. He tapped his cane once against the brittle earth for emphasis, earning a finch from the normally taciturn woman. More than that, we need warriors, and we need to train them. With what little time we have left, the Grimm have begun to move. Salem won't be idle much longer. We'll never have a chance like this again. My decision is final. Everyone on that list has earned their right to be here. I understand, she muttered, holding her arm and glancing away. And I apologize for my slip. He touched her hand. Rest assured, I'll be taking every precaution. She was right to be worried. Of course he was taking an incredible risk with this generation, a band of misfits and criminals, outcasts and runaways, nearly all of them. Ozpin had made do with worse than this in his heyday. Far worse. Team STRQ stood as a testament to that. He would do what he must, as he'd always done before. He made the hard choices that no one else would, because there was no victory without sacrifice, nor sacrifice without victory. Sometimes one man had to die so the many might live. Sometimes there was no happy ending. It had to be him. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Some of them would live, others would die. Some always did. Despite his best efforts to prevent it, may the gods forgive him for what he was about to do, because he certainly wouldn't be forgiving himself anytime soon. 000. Nope. That was Naruto's first thought as reality reluctantly swam back to him. Naturally, his first instinct was to roll over in his sleeping bag and tell morning to bugger right off. Squeezing his eyes shut against the sunlight, he did his best to ignore the clamor around him. Even now he could hear others rising around him, discern the odd hushed voice or 2. Someone called his name and he hissed out a curse, clutched his pillow tighter, and tried to resist the impulse to murder them. For once, he hadn't dreamed of that damn fox. Was that a good thing? He wasn't certain. It was because in the absence of said fox he'd slept sound, perhaps too soundly at that. So nope. With a heaping helping of nope, he gripped his pillow and rolled over. Rather, he tried, until someone grumbled in his ear, stop moving, will ya? Wait, pillows didn't talk. Oh ho ho, I'm up. Realization dawned and Naruto bolted upright at the next nudge. But it was already too late to save himself. Coco's smile was the first thing he saw, and it spoke volumes. It certainly didn't help that just about everyone in the auditorium was staring at them. A soft moan in his ear. He sealed his fate completely. He made the mistake of inhaling, and the scent of a familiar shampoo flooded his nose. Then he looked down and saw Emerald made a quiet sound of contentment and snuggled deeper into his arms, wrapping her own around his back as she spooned against him. Naruto wasn't fooled for a moment, and only stiffened as he felt 10 fingers pinch his hip. 8 pair of hooded red eyes peeked up at him through mint green hair. When he looked down, still bleary from sleep for a fleeting moment, he thought he glimpsed the ghost of a grin on her lips before it vanished, and she nuzzled against his throat, kissing his neck. Everyone gasped above them, and he felt a familiar heat shoot through him. Was this revenge for Coco's antics? It felt like revenge. Naruto absolutely twitched. Little minx, why are you in my sleeping bag? He hissed. Emerald tucked her head into his arm. Had a nightmare. Oh, he didn't pry further. You do realize everyone is staring at us? Don't care. She yawned and buried her head further into his chest. Sleepy. She tried to burrow into his chest like a groundhog, and well would have if he didn't pinch her cheek. The growl that followed was adorable. Emerald would have stabbed him if he spoke of it. She didn't throw her semblance at him. She launched it like a ballistic missile. Naruto ignored the haunting image of snakes sprouting from her hair and pinched her cheek in retaliation. We're gonna be late if you don't get up, he warned. She snorted softly. Nope. Comfy. Blue eyes bulged emerald. Coco all but howled with laughter, physically doubling over as her bright eyes squinted behind her shades. In the end it took the combined efforts of her, Velvet, and another student to pry Emerald loose and allow Naruto to stand. Even then, it was only a momentary thing, and Emerald swore like a sailor the entire time they were apart. Breakfast? Coco offered. Breakfast, Naruto seconded with a sigh. Breakfast does sound nice, Velvet offered softly. Emerald latched onto Naruto's back like a limpet. Carry me. The brunette arched an eyebrow. She's not a morning person, is she? You have no idea. Naruto blew out a breath and complied with a groan. Come on, and don't bite my neck. I ain't food. 000. Breakfast in Beacon was a violent, torrid affair. At least, Naruto certainly thought so. A veritable horde of aspiring applicants descended upon the cafeteria in a single wave. United in their singular haste to scarf down a meal before initiation began, the poor kitchen staff never stood a chance. Indeed, even trained though they were swamped nonetheless. The strong elbowed their way to the front first, while the weaker students were forced to the back of the line to wait their turn. Metal trays sailed to and fro like metal frisbees, flung with sharp insults and an almost vindictive glee. Life is war and breakfast is but the first of many battlefields, their mentor had once said. He who strikes first gets to eat, he who hesitates, well, he goes hungry. To this day, they'd never gotten the bastard's name. He'd been a dark-haired man with darker eyes, a creature of strange sayings and odd looks, one who took them into his home for a short time and in turn helped them hone their skills to a razor's edge. They'd woke one morning to find him gone, a heavy pouch of lean left in his place, and hadn't seen him since. In a way they were grateful to him. His absence had spurred the two of them to leave vacuo behind and make a name for themselves. That had been what, years ago now? Why was he thinking about that here? Hey, you stopped! Emerald prodded Naruto's shoulder with her chin, drawing him out of his reverie. What's wrong? It's nothing, he muttered, shaking his head. Just a memory. That aside. She looked past him and saw the mob. Yeah, that's a problem. Now, looking out upon this wild sea of teenagers, Naruto and Emerald found themselves in complete agreement as they watched the sea of hungry people surge back and forth across the room in an angry tide. It was like watching some beautiful yet terrible disaster unfold before your very eyes. You wanted to look away, but you couldn't. Can you get off now? Naruto sighed. Emerald immediately bit his ear for his temerity. Hard yow. Not the ears. What did I do this time? You were rude, his partner retorted, sliding off his back with a dancer's grace. Come on. She cracked her knuckles. Let's show them how vacuo rocks it. Took the words right out of my mouth, he hummed. With a grin, they dove in. A liberal application of elbows and knees and arms alike earned the former thieves a place in the horde, from which they snatched a heaping helping of pancakes, bacon and eggs. Emerald even managed to wrangle 2 cups of coffee for them, though Naruto suspected it had more to do with her sticky fingers than any actual use of her semblance. He'd used his sparingly to shunt their adversaries aside, always quick to return what little energy he'd taken from his fellow students. With their prizes firmly in hand, the unlikely duo stole an empty table for themselves and proceeded to dig in. Naruto claimed the middlemost space, and Emerald immediately took up residence on his left. Ah, breakfast, she purred, drizzling syrup over her pancakes. Nothing like it. What is it with you and pancakes? Red eyes narrowed. Says the guy drowned his eggs in ketchup. That should have been the end of things. Even now everyone was off forming their little groups and cliques, congregating in the hopes of finding themselves a teammate in the trials to come. Naruto spied a bruised Cardin across the way and briefly considered whipping an apple at his head. In the end, he thought better of it. He wasn't worth the effort if he went after Velvet's ears again. All bets were off. A pillow would be the least of his worries if he tried to harass that poor girl. Sure enough, the larger boy noticed him and flipped him off. Naruto flashed him a predatory grin, and the brute went bone white. Somebody's feeling protective. Emerald prodded his cheek with a fork while he was distracted. Looking for your bunny? Nah, he looked back her with a grin before she could get angry. Just contemplating murder. Cardin being again? She tilted her head, following his gaze. There's an idea. Maybe I should neuter him. His partner snorted at his sarcasm and flicked a piece of bacon at him. Naruto caught it between her teeth, grinned, and launched a pancake back. Emerald snagged it with her fork and tore a great heaping chunk out of it, then flushed as she realized what her actions might have implied. He used the opportunity to toss another bacon shuriken at her. This one stuck to her cheek. Gods, you can be such a child. She still peeled it off her face and ate it. Like you're any better. He stuck his tongue out at her. All things considered, Naruto found himself mildly surprised by the attention they received. Apparently their actions last night had made something of a name for himself. His sensitive ears heard their names mentioned far more than once, while he caught more than a few folks staring when they thought he wasn't looking. Oh? Coco's voice breathed in his ear. Found Prince Charming, have we? Naruto nearly jolted a foot in the air and only narrowly mastered himself. Bite me, beret. Ha! He's got teeth. She laughed and slid her tray into the empty space on his right as though it had always been there. Velvet crept in behind on the brunette's right a moment later, ears drooping. Poor bunny still wouldn't look him in the eye. If anything, she steadfastly kept her gaze on his chest. Had he done something wrong? So what's the plan, partner? His fellow freshman asked. Emerald bared her teeth. He's not your partner. Was it now? Stop it. Naruto whipped his head back to Coco and yanked the illusionist down into his lap the same moment. His actions mollified Emerald enough that she released the knife she'd been holding with a huff. I'm not your partner. Why call me that? Once more, Coco's grin spoke volumes where her words did not. Well, the way I see it, she leaned forward, swallowing a hasty bite of a donut as she did, either you or I are gonna be in charge when we get put on a team. Making a lot of assumptions there. And Mint over there strikes me as more a follower than a leader, the brunette continued without missing a single beat. Velvet's a good gal and all, but she's got confidence issues. Still working on that, no offense. Bun. She idly reached around to hug the faunus by her waist before barreling onward. Look, I'd be fine with either of us being in charge really, but I don't want to step on your toes, so. She clapped her hands. For the sake of our little discussions, let's assume it comes down to the 4 of us. Who's it's gonna be? Pass. Emerald crossed both arms in an X shape before her bosom. Hard pass. She's got a point, you know, Naruto added with a frown of his own. You keep saying this like it's a done deal or something. Aren't you being a little overconfident? Nope. Coco smacked her lips. Because I am going to hunt you down, whiskers. Emerald nearly leaped upright before Naruto wrestled her back down. Coco wasn't fazed by it in the least. And if you fail? He asked. She waved. I'll just bribe the headmaster or something, no big deal. Velvet finally found her voice with a gasp. Coco, no. Coco, yes. Her partner cackled. That's illegal. It also won't work though. Emerald's face remained stoic. Naruto knew her well enough to see when she was angry, and he'd seen her fingers twitch back toward the knife just now. He has a school, remember? This school, the one we're trying to get into. Bribery sounds like a bad idea. Coco's head slammed into her empty tray. Damn you and your common sense. Naruto opened his mouth to say something to the same effect, only to pause as a fresh tray clanked down opposite him. Is this space taken? Someone asked. Huh? He blinked, startled by the new arrival. Sure. Go ahead, knock yourself out. He muttered the words almost flippantly, never once paying attention until a small slip of a girl slid in across from them. Even then he barely noticed her at first. Consumed as he was in his conversation with Coco, could it be called a conversation? Wasn't it more of an argument? Semantics. I'm sorry, she apologized, bowing her head as everyone turned to stare at her. Did I interrupt something? In any case, the newcomer was a slight little thing clad in a gray short-sleeved crop top that left her midriff exposed. With matching brown pants and black over-ankle boots, he wasn't quite sure if her skin could be called dark or dusky, but the somewhat darker spots on her exposed skin instantly drew his attention. Nevertheless, logic said they might be scars or birthmark, but he suspected something else. Her brown hair lay tied back in a loose curling ponytail that rather resembled chameleon's tail, leaving her eyes a light gray with a faint azure tint. Said eyes creased in a slight smile when she caught him staring. That was a good thing you did last night, she hummed, quietly tucking into her meal. It's good to see one of our own stick up for themselves. Naruto twitched. Say what now? Our own? Velvet peeked around Coco's shoulder. As everyone looked on, the new girl's skin flushed a faint green with blue. Her spots. No, her whole body did. Even her hair seemed to change color for a moment, brown burning into a deep navy. Coco whistled and clapped appreciatively, a look of rapturous awe flitting behind her shades. Naruto was almost tempted to clap with her. A chameleon faunus. Those were rare these days, rarer than him even. And you are? Emerald growled. Ilya, she granted the human a somewhat bemused look. I believe you slapped me with a pillow last night. Oh, I remember you now. Emerald's smile resembled a shark. Her reply? More so, you tried to strangle me with a sleeping bag. I failed, didn't I? The brunette tilted her head with a smirk of her own. Coco all but howled with laughter. Even Velvet was unable to hide the small, shy smile on her lips. Ah yes, the great pillow fight night. That one had dissolved into insanity once Cardin and his crew went down. In the end it had become a free-for-fall until no one was left standing. Good times. They'd have to do that again sometime, but more importantly, just how did you strangle someone with a sleeping bag? Real questions here. He had to know the answers. Moreover, he had the distinct feeling Emerald just made herself a new friend. That was good, right? Emerald didn't have many friends, so why was he suddenly so terrified? Should I fear for my life? He muttered at her. Emerald shrugged indifferently. She could have answered, but decided to let him sweat instead. Said indifference changed when another, larger body slid in beside Ilya. Pardon me. A familiar voice caused her neck to produce an audible back as she spun around. You. It was the man she'd seen yesterday. He was exactly the same as she remembered, right down to his outfit, with two notable exceptions. For reasons she didn't understand, he deliberately dyed his hair black and wrapped a strange red cloth around his eyes to conceal them. Was that supposed to be a disguise? If so, she considered it something of a poor one. Could he even see through that damn thing? Emerald certainly saw through him well enough. You couldn't forget someone like that, no matter how hard they tried to hide. Is there a problem? As though sensing her gaze, his head turned towards her. Gods above, he really could see through that. No, nothing. The young man granted her a grunt. Don't worry about Adam, Ilya hummed. He's harmless for the most part. The young man clicked his tongue at his companion but otherwise didn't refute her statement. Naruto, however, wore a more scrutinizing expression. Adam, now where have I heard that name before? Ilya must have realized her gaffe immediately, because she turned absolutely bone white before she managed to master herself. Too late. Her companion grit his teeth and Emerald pounced on it, her gaze locking onto the now sullen teen with a laser-focused. Naruto had been right on that count, because the name Adam did sound strangely familiar. Ilya was a mystery, but Adam, she'd definitely heard it somewhere before, too, hadn't she? Where? There hadn't been anyone like him in Vacuo. She would have remembered if there were, which meant she'd heard it somewhere else. On the news, then? Maybe? Possibly? A small part of Emerald wanted to say that she had, even as she frowned upon herself for her own curiosity. She and Naruto had secrets of their own, secrets they desperately wanted to keep. Who was she to begrudge them theirs? It didn't matter. It shouldn't matter so long as they stayed out of their way. Naruto tapped her thigh beneath the table and Emerald went cold. It was their own code they'd created as children, not terribly efficient, and one they rarely use these days. But it was enough to catch her attention all the same. How had it gone again? One tap for yes, twice for no. She felt him begin to trace a series of letters against her skin, beneath the fabric of her jeans, fingers moving a brisk pace before stopping. Her blood froze in its veins as she understood them. Velvet was speaking now, but it was all she could do to stay still. She barely heard her. All the while the letters burned in her mind. White Fang. She flung her semblance at Naruto in a one-way communique. You must be joking. 2 taps. What the hell's a terrorist doing in Beacon? The blonde paused and wrote a name against her leg again with painstaking slowness. Adam Taurus. Emerald glanced at him again, a frown tugging at the corner of her mouth. Shit, no wonder she knew the name, she could see it now. The set of his jaw was the same as she'd seen in the news reports, as were the horns and the hair, though he'd clearly dyed it in an attempt to blend and no one had ever seen his face behind the mask he always wore. Why the blindfold, then? What purpose did it serve? Did that mean Ilya was a member as well, or was she an innocent in this? Too many questions, not enough answers. At the end of the day, Emerald was a thief. She stole to survive, so did Naruto, and as a thief, she loathed terrorists. Whenever they took a job, they always made sure it was clean. They had a code: steal from the rich, never the poor, only take what you need, or barring that, what you can use. Don't get greedy, don't get caught, don't sell yourself to the highest bidder. They didn't fight for a cause, didn't take lives, and most assuredly didn't blow up trains full of innocent people. Worse, they were hypocrites. Oh, they preached about equality and fairness rights, but Emerald thought it a bunch of tripe. Naruto was a faunus, and she got on with him just fine, so what if he had ears and a tail? He was her friend. Bunch of bullshit. Terrorists were the sort of folk you didn't steal from. They were liable to hunt you down and kill you for it. And the White Fang? They were the worst sort of terrorists. Wherever they went, they left a trail of devastation and destruction in their wake. Bloodshed was bad for business. Bloodshed meant a body count, and bodies meant heightened security. Security entailed extra risk, extra guards, extra cameras, and for a thief, death. Now one of the White Fang's most infamous agents was sitting at the same table with them. Blasted Beacon was meant to be a new life, a simple one free of crime and complications. Not this. So what brings the two of you to Beacon? Blast it, dumbass. She cursed Coco for her curiosity even as her mind continued to race. We're looking for someone, Ilya hedged, stealing a nervous look at her companion, who'd gone curiously quiet in the silence. A friend of ours. We wanted to be hunters together. Well, there was a lie if she'd ever heard one. Adam's meal left was all but untouched now. He was too busy watching Naruto like a hawk. His smile suddenly seemed brittle, but the blonde's grin had only grown in the time she'd taken her eyes off of him. What about you, hornhead? The blonde offered suddenly, startling her. Got anything to add to that? Adam didn't utter a word. Ilya was still as the grave. Does it matter? Sensing the tension, Coco tried to put the matter to bed. We're all students now, or we will be, once initiation's done, right? Guy. She waved her arms frantically. Come on, what's with you two? What does it matter who we were before? Oh, I think it matters. Naruto shook his head. Doesn't it? It does. The former redhead surprised him by raising his head. A question for you, if I may. Shoot. The blonde leaned forward. Adam rose to meet him. Tell me, why did you defend that girl last evening? What? Naruto blinked, momentarily taken aback before he recovered. Because he was bullying her. Because it was the right thing to do. Why else would I do it? Adam's mouth set itself into a thin line. Then you have your answer. Emerald's jaw clicked open. Velvet whined and rammed her head into Coco's back. Ilya sputtered in surprise. Naruto blinked, his grin falling slack before the unexpected jab. All the world held its breath. Oh gods, here it comes. Emerald tensed and forced herself to drink her coffee, all the while dreading what was about to transpire. She knew her partner well enough by now to know what he'd do next. Watch the muscle in his right arm tense, knowing at any moment he'd bolt into action, flip the table and, let's be friends, offer him his hand. Adam gazed at the offered palm, half expecting it to bite. You can't be serious. Naruto beamed. Sure am. You said you were looking for someone, right? I'd like to help. Well, he paused, that and maybe reform you. Ilya toppled out of her seat with a squawk, and this time, Emerald nearly joined the poor girl. What was this? Was she missing something here? They needed to leave. Run, flee. Tell a teacher at the very least. She didn't know what the White Fang was planning here in Beacon, but it couldn't possibly be good for any of them. The fact that Naruto was actively shaking Adam's hand only left her even more baffled than before. Just what was it with him and reforming everyone? They were thieves. They stole things. They weren't therapists. When the terrorist actually looked her way, she lost all pity for him. Might as well give up. She had to force the words out, even as her legs longed to run for the hills. There's no shaking him when he like this. Oh, I can think of one thing I'd like to see him shake. Coco! Velvet wailed. Naruto slapped his free palm against his face as the squabbling continued. Adam Taurus. He was shaking hands with a wanted terrorist. Said terrorist had disguised himself and gotten into Beacon somehow. Was Ozpin just being lax? Or had someone let him slip through? He didn't know, nor would have made the connection if Ilya, if that was even her real name, hadn't let it slip. Anyone else would have bolted to their feet and started shrieking. For the authorities, him? He saw potential. Emerald had always called it a flaw of his in the past. He considered it a strength. He liked to see the good in people. But he wasn't a fool. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. In a single sharp movement, he yanked his fellow faunus forward, wrist grinding painfully beneath his fingers as he pulled him close. From one monster to another. Allow me to warn you, he whispered in his ear with a faux smile. I believe in second chances, not thirds nor fourths. Adam's wrist gave an ominous creak as he continued to squeeze, all but ready to shatter under his grasp. I don't know why you're here or what your objective is, and frankly, I don't care. You have one chance, one, don't waste it, K? Nod if you understand. Boys? Coco coughed. Something you want to tell us? To his great delight, Adam capitulated with a bob of his head. Good, perhaps there was some hope for him after all. Time would tell. In a single seamless movement, he released Taurus and sat back down beside a baffled Emerald. Ilia's head poked over the table as she reluctantly climbed back into her seat, looking just as frazzled as he felt. Her face flickered through half a dozen different shades, and he almost pitied her, not enough to rescue her from the smoldering glower atom. Send her way, though. Hope you know what you're doing, Emerald whispered in his ear via her semblance. Naruto sighed, you and me both. By now their table was a touch crowded, and the hour they'd been afforded for breakfast nearly expired yet when he spied a familiar redhead still searching for a seat. He found a way to change the subject. He'd heard her name last night after she'd thrown the first pillow, but it escaped him. Naruto knew he had, but for the life of him he couldn't remember. It started with AP, he was certain of that much. Buggerwell, he knew one way to get her attention. Hey Red, he called out, his voice cracking across the cafeteria like a whip. Over here. We've got an empty spot for you. Pyrrha's head snapped toward them, and she nearly dropped her tray. Excuse me? You here now? Sit, he gestured grandly. Understand? Pale cheeks gone red, no, redder than her scarlet hair, the girl hastened across the room. Their table. She didn't walk to them, she ran, as though in doing so she could somehow escape all the eyes upon her. Poor thing, it was like herding a skittish cat. She looked fit to bolt at the slightest provocation. May I? Sure. He made room for her. We've always got room for a friend. The hope in her eyes was almost too painful to behold. If it isn't too much trouble? Not at all. You gave Cardin what for last night that makes you a friend. He patted the space beside him, and Coco slid aside with a faintly bemused look. Emerald rolled her eyes, and made a point of ignoring the younger girl. Not so Coco, she smelled blood in the water, and like the huntress she aspired to be, she pounced. Well, as I live and breathe, she drawled, propping a hand against her chin. You really are Pyrrha Nikos, aren't you? Aha, there it was, that was her name. Aren't you a little young to be here? Seconded. Emerald munched on a muffin. Just how many strings did you pull, Miss Invincible Girl? Naruto stomped her foot, and she jerked in place. Hey. Pyrrha wilted, and he considered her anew as he polished off the last remnants of his meal. Was she? Sure, she was small, but she had spirit. In a year she'd be freaking tall, he could tell, and if she was strong enough to make her way here on merit alone, well, didn't she deserve a chance? Didn't they all? Everyone was owed a chance, at least one. Oh, unfortunately, the freshmen mistook their scrutiny for something else. Is it that obvious? Velvet shrugged helplessly. And you knew it was bad when she piped up. It really is. You don't have to say anything, Ilia added hastily. No, it's quite all right. I've been asked this question several times today already. Truly, it's no trouble at all. She seemed to shrink for a moment before she steeled her resolve and spoke on. My father wanted me to attend Haven. I refused. When she raised her gaze, those green eyes burned with quiet defiance. I chose Beacon instead. No one challenged that remark, and she seized the opportunity to bull on despite their silence. If it's all the same to you, I'd rather not say more. Still, a year early? Coco was merciless in her interrogation. You might fall behind with a gap like that. I'm willing to work hard to make my way here. Pyrrha's chin rose. My grades won't be an issue. Good for you. Naruto reached around to pat her head. That's the spirit. I call dibs. Emerald and Pyrrha bolted upright, eyes wide as saucer plates. What? I've decided, he declared, heedless of the little redhead's squeak and Emerald's frown. You're just too precious. So me and Em are claiming you're stuck with us now. Whatever this initiation test is, we wouldn't mind having you on our team, right, Em? As he looked on the olive-skinned girl, considered her for a moment, summarily dismissed her as a threat, and shrugged. Don't mind her, she's shy. YOW. He yelped aloud when she stomped him back under the table in retaliation. Coco sniggered. Right, shy. Adam tossed his head. You're a strange girl. She grinned right back. Handsome. You have no idea. Remarkably, he retort, turned the boy's face the same color as his hair. Why, you uppity little. Ignore him. Ilia squeaked out, grabbing his arm before he could do anything foolish. He didn't mean that. It's fine, Naruto yawned. We've all got thick skin here. They made for an odd-looking group, all things considered, and drew more than their fair share of attention. Not all of it pleasant. It was a rare thing indeed to see so many humans and faunas congregating in one place, much less getting along even from here. Naruto could feel Cardin glaring bloody red daggers into his back. There it was. Then he'd had his chance. This time, he whipped an apple over his shoulder. The strangled howl he received was sweet, sweet music to his ears. Adam surprised him with a short bark of laughter. Attention, would all first-year students please report to Beacon Cliff for initiation? A woman's voice droned from the intercom above. Swallowing his retort, I repeat, all first-year students please collect your weapons and proceed to the cliffs, immediately. Naruto and Emerald exchanged a bemused look. Guess that's our cue. 000. Emerald saw the launch pads first. More than 24 of the worn silver squares awaited them on the cliffs overlooking the Emerald Forest. Whoever named the place had good taste, if nothing else. Still, all these squares did not make a circle, and all of them were laid out in a long horizontal line leading across the grass as far as she could see. Crimson eyes widened first in confusion, then comprehension as she finally beheld Headmaster Ozpin and the woman from before. What was her name again? She couldn't be bothered to remember. Didn't matter. They were going to send them down into the forest below. Call it a hunch, call it instinct, call it whatever. She knew, she just knew. Blast it all. She had a bad feeling about this. One by one they were each bid to take their places on the aforementioned pads. She flared her semblance at Naruto as she chose the leftmost square. His ears twitched in recognition, and he immediately selected the one next to her. A grinning Coco gave Velvet a nudge next to him, then slipped in to snatch the nearest one she could for herself. Emerald raised her hackles at the sight. Blasted brunette, she was just too damn persistent. From there the others chose their places quickly. Adam and Ilya stuck together, as did Cardin and his friend. She didn't expect any Pyrrha stole a longing glance at an empty square nearby beside her, and then, perhaps recalling Naruto's words, darted forward. "I'm sorry," she whispered fretfully. "Is this one taken?" Emerald granted her a pitying smile. Had she ever been that timid as a child? Of course not. They'd grown up in different kingdoms, different lands, different worlds. For all that it mattered, this girl had everything handed to her while she had to fight just for scraps. Some of it must have shown through her expression, for Naruto flashed a black look at her. Thus, the thief blew out a small, exasperated breath. "It's fine," Kichi muttered, scratching the back of her head. "Don't worry about it. Hope you've got a good landing strategy prepared." Those jade eyes lit with a hope that was almost too painful to behold. She was just a little thing. Surely she was no threat. Perhaps had Emerald been privy to the state of Pyrrha's mind at that moment, she would have felt more reassured. They didn't care about her fame. If they did, they certainly didn't seem to care. This was why she'd accepted Ozpin's invitation all those months ago to come to Beacon. A year early she could have a life here, a proper one, friends perhaps, if she was fortunate, maybe even something more. And so she smiled. "I think that sounds grand." Naruto barked a laugh that flashed his fangs and made her flush. It made him look more beast than man, and the sight had her blood all but singing. Here was someone who didn't give a damn about societal norms. He did what he pleased, when he pleased, where he pleased. Was it wrong that little Pyrrha found that appealing? Was it wrong that she wanted to be his friend because of it? That was all she wanted, friends, the friends she never had back in Mistral. Just a little piece of happiness with herself. She didn't have to be on Naruto's team. She'd be happy with Emerald, Cocoa Velvet, and the rest seemed nice, too. "If the two of you are quite done?" Ozpin coughed into his fist. Both the redhead and the brunette sputtered and stood at attention. "For years you have trained to become warriors." The headmaster spared them one last bemused look as he raised his voice and turned to face the horde of applicants assembled before them. "And today your abilities will be evaluated in the Emerald Forest." Blast it all, she'd been right. "Now I'm sure many of you have heard rumors about the assignment of teams." The woman beside him stepped forth to continue where he'd left off. "Allow us to put an end to your confusion. Each of you will be given teammates today." Naruto sucked in a short, sharp breath. "These teammates will be with you for the remainder of your time at Beacon," Ozpin added, "so it is in your best interests to be paired with someone with whom you can work well. That being said," he continued, "the first person you make eye contact with after landing will be your partner for the next 4 years. Pyrrha made a choking sound. Poor kid looked like she was going to faint. "After you've partnered up," Ozpin barreled on, heedless of their confusion, "make your way to the northern end of the forest. You will meet opposition along the way." His piercing gaze seemed to sear into each and every one of them in turn. "Do not hesitate to destroy everything or you will die." "Sure thing, boss man, no pressure, none at all. You will be monitored and graded for the duration of your initiation, but our instructors will not intervene." Gods, was he still going? She thought he would have finished by now. "You will find an abandoned temple at the end of the path, containing several relics. Each pair must choose one and return to the top of the cliff. You will guard that item, as well as your standing, upon which you will be graded appropriately. In the meantime, feel free to use your own landing strategy." There was a collective gulp. "Finally, there are a limited number of relics." He allowed his bespectacled gaze to sweep over each of them in turn one final time. "I shouldn't have to tell you what that means, but for the sake of any argument, I shall elaborate. Some of you will succeed, others will fail." A poignant pause followed, and with it, that once easy sense of camaraderie evaporated like so much steam. "Any questions?" Naruto's arm shot up like a piston. Emerald slapped her forehead, as all eyes rounded on him. "Yes?" Ozpin arched an eyebrow. "How many relics are there, exactly?" he asked. "Not enough for all of you, certainly," the headmaster retorted with an even air. "Those unable to secure a relic today may make another attempt next year." Some of the tension bled away at those words, but not much if anything. This remark only seemed to make the rest all the more determined. Emerald chief among them. No one wanted to wait 12 months to try again. It also summoned another, less pleasant thought. Failure. What if Naruto passed, and she failed? Or vice versa? They'd be separated. The thought made her stomach flip. No, not that, anything but that. "Why though?" To her surprise, the words came from her own lips. "We earned our right to be here." "No. Bad mouth. Shut up, damn it." "Haven't we?" Ozpin turned to face her. "Miss Sustrai, was it?" "Crap askets." Red eyes narrowed intently upon Beacon's headmaster. Even as she braced for a sharp rebuke, it never came. "Have a nice flight." All at once, Emerald felt the springpad tense beneath her, and realized he had no intention of answering Usanova. Her withering retort trailed off into a wordless shriek of rage as she rocketed into the air. 000. This was going to hurt. In hindsight, Naruto had no one to blame but himself for his plight, because the moment he'd seen Emerald take off, he panicked. He saw her eyes widen in surprise and fear, and reacted accordingly. Ozpin's little stunt had made him panic, you see, and in his panic, the reincarnated shinobi did something spectacularly stupid. Rather than await his turn to be launched into the Emerald Forest like any sane individual, he spun around and rammed an armored fist into his pad to activate it early and give it a little extra oomph. Result? He shot after her like a golden missile. Perhaps he should have marked her with his semblance to ensure this didn't happen. But in truth, he never thought to do so. Before Naruto knew he should have, the moment his feet left the ground, there was no word and barely any warning to prepare himself. Only the sudden sensation of pressure beneath his boots. Before his world blurred, even then he had just enough time and sense to tense his legs and leap of his own volition. Before the world fell away, it was a very good jump, all things considered. He already knew where he wanted to go, and the pad was more than happy to hurl him into the air as it had been programmed to do. Unfortunately, his brief panic attack cost him dearly. Had he simply left well enough alone, he likely would have landed relatively near her position. Instead, he overshot her by half a mile, then came to trees. No, no, no! Are you kidding me? Wind lashed angrily at his face, forcing the blonde to squint painfully as he got both arms up and deployed his weapons. His entire vision swelled with green and brown. Ordinarily, they were welcome colors, not so now. In a second he'd find himself loathing them. With no other recourse, he raised his shields, grit his teeth, and braced for what he was sure would be an unpleasant experience. Plur! Landing! Strategy! A jarring impact shuddered up Naruto's arm as he crashed through the first oak, followed by the second, then the third, now a fourth. They didn't stop coming, and he lost track after the ninth. At this speed, grabbing a tree wouldn't simply be unwise. It would suicide. Dislocating a shoulder would be the least of his worries. If he tore an arm off, he'd just have to trust in his ample aura reserve and ride his momentum down. In that, he was lucky. He could tank hits that would eviscerate others, endure where many couldn't, and keep going. This was no exception. Finally he spied a low-hanging bough, bounded off it, kicked off another tree to siphon off his momentum, and arced toward the ground. It was just bad luck that a lone Beowulf happened to be in his landing zone. Bad luck for the Grim, that is. To its credit, the poor Grim heard Naruto coming a ways off, but by the time it saw him coming at speed, it simply wasn't able to do anything. Somehow the poor creature managed a lone bark of surprise before he kanonied headlong into it, and swiped its head from his shoulders. Grinning, he rode its corpse to the ground and landed in a pointed crouch on the packed soil. Aura flexed around the impact as his knee struck the earth, bringing with it a pleasant ache as he rose, armored arms stretched, and struck up a lazy pose. Nailed it! He laughed softly, flinging a pumped fist into the air, and the crowd goes wild. A lone crick chirped in the distance. Yeesh, tough crowd. Sighing, he picked a direction that he hoped was north and set out towards it with a jaunty tune. Emerald would find her way to the temple. Surely he just couldn't make eye contact with anyone until then, yet totally doable. You got this, just ignore all the noise and head north. He could do this definitely. A faint rustle behind him caught his attention. Someone shouted. It sounded suspiciously like Cardin. Well, look who it is. Definitely Cardin. Where you going, Whiskers? Far, far away from you. Naruto blew out a breath and walked away, determined not to look back. No matter the cost, he didn't have time for this. Whatever energy he wasted on him would be better spent seeking out Emerald. That big lummox could find someone else to be his partner. That way lay nothing but misery. A hand locked around one of his ears and yanked hard. Well, now he knew how Velvet felt. Come on now, don't be like that. The boy's voice was, we're pals, aren't we? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Naruto squeezed his eyes shut and hissed out a breath when the larger boy yanked again, but otherwise refused to grant him the reaction he sought. Even then, pain blazed in the back of his skull, and he only narrowly succeeded in stilling himself. Stop, don't react. If he opened his eyes now, he'd wind up working with Cardin. He wouldn't put it past Ozpin to have cameras installed somewhere around here. They were being monitored by the teacher. They had to be. Gods, Cardin was still talking. You know, you really made a fool of me yesterday. There was an angry, vindictive glee in the younger boy's voice now. He could just imagine his sneer. Maybe it's time I paid you back for that. Friends don't hold grudges after all. Idiot, enough of this violence. It was. Then Cardin had struck first. I've got a better idea. Oh, really? The grip on his ear intensified. And what's that? Naruto squeezed his eyes shut, wrenched his head to the side, and lashed out with one of his shields. He didn't need his eyes to hit him. His ears told him exactly where to strike. Sure enough, Devil's Retribution struck something metal, and the larger boy cried out in surprise as he crashed backward. At least it sounded like he had. Didn't matter. Cardin was no friend of his. He wanted nothing to do with him, and thus, the blonde waited just long enough for his weapon to carry him back into his waiting palm before he bolted. Hey, nope. Naruto blazed forward, bounded over a log, and dove into the brush beyond, uncaring of the snags and branches that slapped at his face in a matter of moments. He'd left the burly boy behind. In the distance he heard a Beowulf howl. Good riddance to bad rubbish on that front. He'd sooner lop off an arm that work with that lug. Let the others have him. Somewhere behind him, a gunshot went off. Good, at least someone seemed to be helping the big lug now. He needn't feel guilty about this. A few paces in, he glimpsed the back of a dark blur that might have been Adam in the trees. He recognized the horns, and despite his earlier remark, he clamped a hand over his eyes and turned away. An annoyed cough told him he'd finally been noticed, but he dare not remove his hand for fear of being partnered up. Just passing through, he called out to him, you go your way and I'll go mine. The former redhead grunted, fair enough, fight well. When next he looked, the swordsman was gone. Phew, Naruto blew out a breath. He hadn't realized he'd been holding too close. Gotta be more careful. Whoever was out there, surely they could look after themselves. Emerald was the only partner he wanted in Beacon. Coco and Velvet were alright, he supposed, and he wouldn't be opposed to the idea of being on a team with either of them. But there was only one woman in the world he trusted to watch his back, to be his partner. Perhaps that was petty of him. Selfish even. It wouldn't matter if he wound up on the same team as Emerald. But some small childish part of him wanted them to remain partners in name as well as deed. Damn it, he hissed as he slammed a fist into a tree. This just isn't my day. Is fate trying to screw me over or something? Still, the way forward was clear. The way behind more so now that he'd left that first potential hopeful behind. So focused was he on evading any would-be pursuers that he failed to heed his surroundings. It was only when someone cried out above him that he realized his mistake in striking the tree he punched hard, perhaps a little too hard. Not once did he think to look up, until someone yelped above him. By then it was too late. Arg? As such, when a light weight crashed down on his shoulders and latched onto him, his first impulse was to buck violently. You didn't live long in vacuo by ignoring your instincts, and his had been honed to a razor's edge in the alleyways of that horrible kingdom long before he and Emerald left that world behind. Really, he couldn't be blamed for what happened next. Naruto roared in surprise and reached upward, hands flying out to grab whatever he could. Strong fingers locked around an arm alongside a fistful of hair. He used it as leverage to yank and heave his attacker free from his body, flinging them to the earth. From there instinct took over and he surged forward, pinning his would-be assailant in place with a lightly armored knee. A yelp greeted his attack. A pair of bright yellow eyes flew open to blaze back at him, framed by a young face and dark hair. The poor girl froze beneath him. Ebony tresses sprawled beneath her like a black halo to match her dark clothes. But those didn't hold his attention. The ears twitching atop her head did what? A cat fawness. Unexpected. She glowered furiously up at him, angrier than a kitten caught in the rain. It certainly didn't help that he had her pinned. He was holding a ribbon in his fist, blazing amber orbs locked on it. Give it back, she hissed at him. They say first impressions last a lifetime. This was certainly a memorable one if nothing else. Aghast, he realized they'd just made eye contact. Naruto swore softly. Well, he gulped. I'm terribly sorry about this, but why INK? He who runs away lives to fight another day. Emerald was going to murder him. Get back here, you bastard. There it is. That's the look. I've seen it for years and face after face in the streets of Vacuo. Stop running from your past. Damn it. Face it head on. Grab it by the horns. I know it's hard for you. I know it hurts. But trust me, it's gonna be a whole lot worse if you leave things as they are. If you can't get over it, then commit to it. Strangle that guilt holding you back. Raise your head high and walk forward. I can't. I'm not a monster. Unlike you, I regret the things I've done. Oh, monster, am I? Perhaps you should speak to me more softly. Then monsters are dangerous. You damn me for the deeds I've done. You judge me for the crimes you think I've committed, but your hands are just as bloody as mine, if not more so. Men fear monsters, don't they? And not just men, but women and children too. Even our kind run from them, fear them, dread them, and you believe you know what it is to be a monster, So you've taken a few lives and feel bad about it, bah. There are worse things than death. Get over yourself. You have no idea what a monster is. Blake, follow me. I'm going to show you. An argument of ideals, wolves and sheep. Life wasn't fair. Blake Belladonna had never been more certain of that fact until this moment. Give it back. She tried for what felt like the umpteenth time to snatch her stolen ribbon back from Naruto. To no avail. Much to her dismay, her fellow faunus held it tight in his right hand as he walked ahead of her. Any attempt on her part to extricate it from his fist seemed doomed to failure. No matter how she tried to distract him, she couldn't pry the strip of fabric from his fist. Every attempt on her part only served to deepen his scowl. By now sixth attempt, he looked positively murderous. Still, she had to try. Would you stop glaring at me? Naruto clicked his tongue in mild admonishment as he stepped over a fallen log. I'm not happy about this either, but we're partners now. We'll just to deal with it. She swiped at his hand again. No. He shook his head and batted her palm away. You're not getting this back. I don't know why you were hiding those ears of yours, but I'm not having it. Don't hide who you are. It's none of your business. She sulked. I had a reason for hiding them. I'm a fox. Sweetheart. Piercing blue eyes roved across the path ahead and the trees above before finally settling on her. Everything is my business. Tell you what. He paused and turned to plant his back against a worn-looking tree. You tell me the reason why, and I'll give it back. No strings attached. Silence reigned supreme. Have it your way. The fox faunus shrugged. The bow stays with me, then. You're insufferable. You know that? Blake scuffed the ground with her foot and kicking dirt at him as he marched on ahead of her once more. I don't want to be your partner. You weren't even trying to knock me out of that tree. Why don't you just let me go and pretend you never met me? It would be better for the both of us. No can do, kitty cat as ever. His razor wit bit through her defiance like an angry Beowulf. Ozpin and his cronies are watching us. You can run if you like. You strike me as the type, but it won't change the result. She dragged herself after him like a ball and chain for fear of being left behind. You're lying. Nope. Naruto jerked a thumb over his shoulder, indicating a nearby oak to her right. There's a camera up there in the branches. You can see it in the sunlight if you squint much. To her chagrin, she saw light dance off metal as a lens focus on them. See? He snapped of a snarky salute to the device in question. There's no getting out of this. Damn it, damn him. She tried so hard, gotten so far, but in the end it didn't even matter. She'd come to Beacon to start over. This was meant to be the beginning of a new life for her. She'd pass initiation and become a huntress here, find a simple partner who wouldn't pry into her past, and a team who wouldn't ask questions. She would be free of the white fang and all her sins, given a chance to atone. Fate had a cruel sense of humor, it seemed. Instead, she'd wound up with the one person she couldn't accept. She'd seen this boy mop the floor with Cardin and his cronies in the auditorium with almost punitive ease, and, while a small silent part of her admired that he'd stuck up for that poor girl right now, she wanted nothing more than to drown him in a river. It wasn't his fault. He just stood out too much, reminded her of Adam too much. She thought herself clever, but moreover, she thought Vale was safe. She'd left the white fan to get away from faunus like him. not to tumble into the arms of another. In a different life she would have waited another year before leaving the fawn, leaving Adam behind as she had, but she'd been so angry a simple argument between the two of them had escalated into a war of ideals. And so here she was, Adam and Ilya weren't supposed to come after her, yet they had. Now here she was trapped with a maniac of a different sort who still wouldn't give back her bow. Beacon was meant to be an escape from all this, a winning hand in the card game that was life, not this frantic and out of options. She threw one of her last remaining card at her not still silent partner. I know who you are. Naruto hummed and peeled back a branch for her. Do you now? By all means, enlighten me. She ducked under it and hurried after him. Damn him, and those long legs of his, he had to be enjoying this. You're that thief. When he only chuckled at her, she felt her face darken even more. The one from Vacuo. Desert Storm, really? His laughter redoubled. Is that what they're calling me these days? Ha! He batted aside a web of vines and paused to inspect a tree whose bark had been clawed apart. Amateurs should have picked a better name. Doesn't that mean anything to you? His laughter only intensified, leaving her to duck under the next branch herself. She glowered angry golden daggers at the blonde's broad shoulders, trying to burn a hole through his back with them alone. Every faunus worth their salt knew his deeds. Even if many had never seen his face, the twin shields he wore at his wrists merely confirmed her earlier suspicions. She didn't even know if Naruto was his name, but she knew what the fawn called him to make her own assumptions. Desert Storm. Not quite a gentleman thief, but not some mindless thug either. A daring burglar. His crimes were many, but unlike Adam, he'd never taken a life. She didn't have any proof, but she'd suspected, and he made no effort to deny it. It was enough to make her want to melt back into the shadows and hide. So much for her new life. She was associating with a wanted criminal now. How long would it be until others made the connection, realized just what she was trying to hide? Her past seemed determined to hound her everywhere she went. Cat got your tongue? Naruto's voice called up ahead of her. You've been quiet for a while now. That's unlike you. Blake growled and buelled on ahead of him. Rather, she tried to until an arm shot out to bar her path. She glowered bloody red daggers at its owner. Will you stop being a... When that same hand slammed over her mouth and yanked her behind a tree, her fist instinct was to panic. Fear compelled her to cry out, but even that noise was muffled against Naruto's palm. She glared up at him, but those mirthful blue eyes were chips of ice now, cold and hard and focused. Naruto raised a finger to his lips. He shook his head slowly, and she saw his mouth move. Though no sound emerged, it was easy enough to read them. She soon wished she hadn't. Don't move. Blake didn't get a chance to ask why not. She heard it before she saw it. A great dark shape, easily 3 times their height, lumbered through the emerald forest ahead of them. Swaying and lurching, she caught a flash of white bone against the black, and her heart skipped a beat. Grim. It didn't look right. She'd seen her fair share of minor grim before, even killed a few, but there was something off about this one. Before she could ascertain what it was, the beast paused, sniffed once at the air, and moved on. There, Naruto released her as it bounded away. It's gone. Blake pawed at his hand. What the hell was that? Warn me next time. Probably a Beowulf. Naruto slumped against the tree. Big one. 2 were better off avoiding it. Abruptly, the canopy above them shook as something landed miles above them. Both faunus froze. An unfamiliar shriek pierced the sky as whatever it was took off again, and a cold downdraft assailed them. Blake felt a cold bead of sweat run down her brow as she released a breath she hadn't even known she was holding. And that? Something bigger. Her partner thumbed his chin as he regarded the trees above with bleak look. Nevermore. By the sound of it, something we want no part of. I don't know about you, but I'm no good when it comes to aerial grim. Was this forest full of giant grim or something? Blake looked down and saw her ribbon still held in his fist. Saw her chance. He was distracted by the trees. Moreover, he wasn't paying the least attention to her. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. She dove for it while he was looking away, and against all odds, succeeded this time. She somehow managed to wrap her fingers around the tail end of the thin material. The moment she did, she yanked on it with all her might. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Enough! Naruto batted the hand away and rounded on her with a hiss as he held it out of her grasp. We've got giant grim about, and you're still after this thing? Where are your priorities? It's mine! She cried. You're right. The smile he flashed her was colder than winter itself. Let's do something about that. Before she could think to stop him, he stepped back and seized the thin strip of fabric between both hands. An ominous ripping sound filled Blake's ears as he snapped the ribbon. Taut, no, he wouldn't. Surely he couldn't be that cruel. Even as she stepped forward to stop him, it was too late. She could only cry out, No! Don't! Naruto tore her ribbon, what was left of it, to shreds before her very eyes. Blake felt something tear inside herself with the ruined cloth. It was just a ribbon. She told herself she could always get another one. By then it would be too late. She'd be seen by the rest of the first years and outed as a faunus. She knew what would come after. It would be just the same as it always was, because of this, because of him. There, he patted his hands, leaving the torn shreds to settle at her feet. Let's see you wear it now, coward, coward. Without so much as a backward glance, he stormed away. Still, that last word struck Blake like a slap in the face, and she hesitated. If only for a moment she'd been called worse, far worse, during her time with the fawn, but those words still stung all the same, even more so coming from someone outside it. Her anger ignited. Why are you like this? She shouted at his back. Me? Quick as a flash he rounded on her, ears twitching. I'm not the one hiding who I am. Her own flattened in response. That's not Blake Belladonna? Really? How obvious can you be? He snapped his teeth at her, eliciting another flinch from the younger faunus. If you know me, then just about every faunus alive knows your last name. You didn't even try to disguise yourself. Not really a bow. Come on now. Did you think that would work? And look at you. She rammed her forehead against his with a hiss, standing on her tiptoes just to reach him. You didn't even try to change your appearance. I used a more subtle approach, but you're right. He leaned back, leaving her startled with his reply. I could have, but I didn't. Do you know why? Tremulously, she shook her head. Unlike you, I'm proud of my life. The whiskered youth jabbed a thumb at his chest. His words cracked at her like a whip. I have no regrets. If I see injustice or something I don't like, I'll act first and ask questions later. Consequences be damned if anyone is bullied in front of me, human or faunus. I'm gonna break that bully's legs, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's how I work. He really was just like Adam. No, he was worse. Adam slaughtered the enemies of the white fan. Naruto clearly left his wishing for death. He left them humiliated and broken, just like Cardin. You can't do that. She said as much, for what little good it did her. Can he poked her forehead, forcing her back a step. Will get used to it. Princess, another poke, another retreat. You only get one life in this rotten world, so make the most of it. Her back hit a tree and he all but pinned her there with his gaze. Now get off your high horse, stop running, and fight for what you believe in. Isn't that what the white fan does? I'm not. You are. Naruto paused, frowned, reconsidered his words as he considered another savage tree, or at the very least, you were used to be. You have that air about you. Realization dawned in his eyes and the weight behind his gaze threatened to bury her alive. I get it now. Why else would someone like Adam freaking Taurus come to Beacon like this? He came to retrieve someone new. She took a step backward. Are you working with him? Why would I? I'm a freak, he scoffed, tail thrashing angrily against his back. 9 out of 10 faunus come into this world with a single animal trait. Me? I wound up with 2-3 if you count the whiskers. His ears, human and faunus alike, twitched as he stared her down. If that weren't enough, there's the matter of my birth. My mother, my own flesh and blood, died bringing me into this world. He shrugged, uncaring of her flinch. My father couldn't bear to look at me. After that he finally threw me out into the streets a few years later. Do you have any idea what that's like to live like that? Do you even care? No. Turning his head, he spat at her feet. We're nothing alike, Blake. He shook his head. And I chose to leave the life of a thief behind because we've made enemies. Fear had nothing to do with it. The stakes were getting too high, and we wanted something better than what we had. So we left. We never lied to ourselves, never deceived each other. We knew exactly what we were getting into. He jammed both thumbs into his belt and frowned at her. If this falls through, it'll be a disappointment, but it won't be the end of our world. We'll just have to make a career change. You'll go back to being thieves. She flung the words at him. We won't like it. He batted the words away with a bitter smile. But we have to make a living. Then you're no better a common criminal. At that remark, his eyes turned to slits, and she thought he might slap her. There it is. Incredibly, he smiled and shook his head. That's the look. I've seen it for years in face after face in the streets of Vacuo. In a flash, Naruto moved. Stop running from your past, damn it. Blake realized her peril too late. By then he'd already seized her by the shoulders. Now he gave her a firm shake. Face it head on. Grab it by the horns if you have to. I know it's hard for you. I know it hurts. When she tried to speak out and shout him down, he snarled her into silence. Listen to me. If you keep going as you are now, you're going to regret it. If you can't get over what you've done, then commit to it. Strangle that guilt holding you back. Raise your head high and walk forward. I can't. She railed back, slapping his chest. I'm not a monster. Unlike you, I regret the things I've done. Oh, monster, am I? The blonde reared back as if she'd slapped him, and his scowl turned to a bitter smile. Perhaps you should speak to me more softly. Then monsters are dangerous. You'd happily damn me for the deeds I've done, condemn me for the crimes you think I've committed. But your hands are just as bloody as mine. His finger jabbed her shoulder, and she recoiled with a hiss, if not more so. That's not. I didn't. Men fear monsters, don't they? Still he advanced, bulldozing her protests, and not just men, but women and children too. Even our kind run from them, fear them, dread them, and you believe you know what it is to be a monster, So you've taken a few lives and feel bad about it. Tough. Her wrist lashed at him, and he caught, stalling the slap before it could strike. See? You tried to hit me for it. Hypocrite. You'll gladly run away from your past, but you won't face it. He flung her arm away. There are worse things than death, far worse. Get over yourself. A lone ice blue iris regarded her over his shoulder. You have no idea what a monster is. Blake, follow me. I'm going to show you. And if I refuse? That's on you. His shoulders rose and fell in a huff. Follow. Or don't. You're a hot mess. And I shouldn't have to fix you, but I'm gonna try. Blake wasn't sure if that was supposed to comfort her or not. She dragged herself after him. They walked on in bitter silence for what felt like hours in reality. She was sure only a few minutes had passed. Finally, Naruto spoke again. I'm not sorry about what I said, he said haltingly, choosing his words with great care as they broke through the brush and found the path once more. You might think me cruel, but it's the truth. I'm not saying the white fan is full of saints, but sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. Nothing will change if you just stand there and turn the other cheek. I did fight. She took her lips between her teeth. I'm tired of fighting. You never stop fighting, Naruto countered sagely as he led them deeper into the thicket. From the moment you take your first breath in this world to your last, you're always fighting for something, be it food, water, or even companionship. The trick is finding something to believe in, something you love, someone you die for. Blue eyes turned to regard her widened duck. Blake obeyed without thinking, and not a moment took. Soon a rush of warm air passed perilously close to her head as one Naruto's shields whipped past, followed by a bestial howl, one far too close for her liking. Against her better judgment, the younger fauness turned and found the source. She tumbled backward with a yelp when she found the weapon buried in the white skull of a beowulf, its jaws poised perilously close to take a bite right out of her shoulder. No longer. The creature collapsed with a wet gurgle at her feet and dissolved into harmless ash. She hadn't even heard it coming. Was she really that distracted? You alright? Golden eyes blinked rapidly as concerned blue orbs swelled before them. Between one moment and the next, Naruto had appeared beside her. Now he offered her his hand as he bent down to retrieve his fallen shield. He could have let her die, but he hadn't. Why? She sucked in a small, ragged breath and clamped a hand down on his arm, allowing herself to be hoisted to her feet. Have you killed Grimm before? He was looking at her as though she were glass, afraid she might shatter at any moment. She loaded it. Of course I have. Her cheeks burned as she batted his hands away. I was just caught off guard, that's all. That unusual, Naruto muttered. Not you, he amended casually at her heated glance. Grimm don't sneak up on people like that. The regular ones usually just howl and bray and run dead. At you. Even the crabs back in Vacuo didn't really ambush you unless you walked right over their lair. Well, the spiders did. But that's to be expected, I guess. Crabs? Blake felt her gut twist. Spiders? Big ones, Naruto added with a nod. Heedless of her growing terror, they jumped right out of the sand and wham! A fist smacked into an open palm. If you weren't careful you'd be dragged right under. I don't think I want to see Vacuo, Blake whimpered. Ever. Don't blame you, he grinned. And for the first time, she found herself almost mirroring it. Nobody likes Vacuo. Don't look now, but we've got more company. Blake followed his gaze and found a pair of Ursua, minor and greater alike, lumbering out of the brush only a few yards ahead. Unlike the odd Beowulf of before, these two made no such attempts at subterfuge. They saw them and charged forward, braying all the while. She broke off to engage the smaller of the pair, used her semblance to evade its first swipe, and subsequently dispatched it with a quick slice across the throat. Quick and efficient. Not a single motion wasted on her part. Naruto dove at the big one, eyes burning red. I called dibs. To its credit, the Ursa saw him coming and reacted accordingly. For all the good it did, rather than take its mighty claw on one of his shields, the blonde let glance harmlessly off his aura and leaped at the beast, unprepared for such a suicidal maneuver. The Grimm wasn't able to react until he clambered onto its back. By then, it was too late. Tan palms clamped down on the ghastly white spines protruding from its back and held tight. What are you doing? Blake balked. Naruto didn't answer her with words, but deeds. That ghastly glow in those now amber orbs roared ever higher. Alight with some inner flame, the beast must have sensed something amiss, because its struggles intensified tenfold. Still Naruto clung on, riding the bear like a bucking bronco. His eyes burned a bloody scarlet now, sharp and slitted, his lips parted in an almost rapturous expression. Blake started forward, gamble shroud in hand. Her charge died when she saw his body begin to burn red. Enraged beyond measure, the Ursa reared up and tried to crush Naruto against the tree, but the blonde merely twisted his body out of the way, planted his feet on its back, and pulled, and the Grimm began to slow. 000. Ozpin blinked down at the scroll in his hand. Once, twice, then thrice. Well, he frowned. I didn't expect this. Glinda looked over his shoulder and her face turned absolutely ashen. Ozpin didn't blame her. Had he a mirror, he expected his face would have been a similar shade of white. Right about now it was like watching something out of a horror movie. You wanted to look away and he did, but you just couldn't bring yourself to avert your eyes from the disaster unfolding before you. How strange he'd chosen to watch the boy on a whim, and here, in this moment, he almost pitied the blonde's prey. That did not look like a pleasant death. Still, this was incredible and terrifying. Such a power could not be squandered. Though it hurt his heart to say it, Beacon needed such a gift. Sir, his lieutenant whispered. Is he? His lips turned down in a grimace. Killing it, yes. 000. The Ursa was dying. It was the work of minutes rather than moments. But with each passing second that Blake stood by, she watched the beast grew weaker. Little by little its throes diminished, dark fur turned coarse, and gray muscles atrophied as its body became old and brittle like so much rotten driftwood. And still her partner didn't relent. He took and took and took until the beast had nothing left to give, until it collapsed, legs folding beneath its burly bulk, those ghastly red eyes closed, never to open again. Naruto rode its corpse to ground with a small sigh and smacked his lips. Thanks for the meal. A beat of awkward silence pushed itself between the two faunas once more. What was that? Blake backpedaled, her mouth open in a small round O of muted confusion as she watched her partner dismount the decaying corpse that wasn't his semblance. No, it couldn't be. She'd seen it last night. His was a teleportation type. At least she assumed it was used to move short distances at a rapid pace. This, what the hell was this? He drained that Ursa dry. Like a tall glass of water. It had taken him some time and no small amount of effort, sure, but still. He flashed her a wan smile. I could ask you the same thing. Was that a clone semblance? Don't distract me. Why, you can't have two semblances, she babbled, taking 3 steps back. It's not possible, not natural. You're right. In a technical sense. He paused to roll his right shoulder with an audible pop. I was born with only one semblance. I gained another. Blake didn't like the implications of that sentence, least of all his tone. He was being mysterious. The bastard, her keen might caught the hints he'd left and made the connection. Gained, he'd said. Gained, that implied that he hadn't had the second semblance. Hadn't been born with it. Could he steal semblances then? And if so, how? It all made a twisted sort of sense. No wonder the headmaster was willing to overlook Naruto's crimes. He wanted him here. In Beacon badly, a gift like that could change the world or destroy it. She shuddered and hugged her arms close to her chest as a chill swept through her. How pragmatic. Adam would kill for a gift like that, so would the rest of the world. Why tell me this? She asked. Why tell me anything all? Because no one will ever believe you. Naruto tilted his head, then laughed when she blanched that aside. I decided to make a point both to you and whomever might be watching us. He pointedly looked up at where another camera was no doubt concealed earlier. You called me a monster when he strode forward. Blake Mears shrank back. Think how many people I could have killed with this, how many I haven't killed. Remember that before you judge me. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Now hold still. His hand pulsed red again, but rather than pain, she experienced a sudden rush of vitality, as if she drank a cup of coffee several cups. Death is a cycle, Naruto replied as she looked on in quiet awe. It gives and it takes away. Red eyes faded back to their true blue and lanced into her gold. Healing is a part of that. I choose what to do with the energy I take. I can hoard it, all of it, for myself, or I can use it in the service of others. I don't understand you. She pulled away with a small shiver. You wouldn't be the first. Maybe I was a better person in my first life? He shook his head. I get that feeling sometimes, I really do, but Grim deserve no mercy. I'll use any and every advantage I have against them. Blake opened her mouth to retort to that effect. Aha! There you are. A low, annoyed voice plucked the words right off her tongue. I thought I heard your voice. Where the hell have you been? Were you hiding or something? For the first time since she'd met him, Naruto's blue eyes sparked with true life. Once again he rounded on the sound, for it came from behind them. That's my line. Emerald burst out of the undergrowth ahead of them. Eyes narrow and cheeks flushed with emotion, said eyes fixed on Naruto, and widened, narrowed again. The thief didn't move. She bolted. There was a subtle sway in the older girl's hips when she approached them, an almost lazy yet tense gait that could morph into a dead sprint at the slightest provocation. Her own smile mirrored Naruto's in its intensity. No, it burned brighter still, like a child finding a long-lost friend. He met her halfway. Emerald all but crashed into him and buried her face in his chest with a sound that vaguely resembled a sigh. 10 arms wrapped around his waist like a lasso and held on for dear life. For his part, the blonde didn't make an effort to escape her embrace. Even if he could, he simply laid his chin atop her head and patted her back. Blake flushed and looked away as he spoke. Did you think I'd run away or something? Shut up, Emerald growled into his jacket. Idiot, stupid, I hate you. Miss you too, he hummed. Planting a chaste kiss against her forehead, she grumbled on and held tighter. All the while, Blake watched them with increasing discomfort. There was no degree of deference between the two of them. They were partners, equals in all things, perhaps even lovers. Oddly enough, the thought hurt. It reminded her of Adam. Witnessing such a display made her feel like an outsider. No, she was one, intruding on their moment like this. As if sensing that very thought, Emerald finally noticed her. Hey, who's the kid? Just a tag-along, Naruto answered a little too quickly. Well, we kinda. He's my partner. Blake hated to say it, but she knew she was better off with these two than Adam or Ilya. They wouldn't understand. They just dragged her back to the Fang. She wasn't going back, not now, not ever. What was the saying the humans used? Better the devil that didn't kill than the one that did? Wait, that wasn't it. Fine, Emerald smiled, and it was all teeth. I haven't made eye contact with anyone else myself. Guess that makes him my partner, too. Huh? Naruto blinked. Bit of a technicality, but that works, doesn't it? That's not how the rules work, Blake protested. The two thieves laughed. Nobody carries. 000. Where was everyone? Try as he might, Cardin Winchester hadn't seen so much as a single soul in the last hour. Not since that damn fox, at any rate. Just the thought of him made his blood boil anew. His fist tightened around the haft of his mace, as he used it to mow down a web of vines in his path. All the while, an angry ember of rage continued to burn in the back of his mind. Bloody bunny lover, this was all his fault. Well, he'd show him and all those freaks. He'd just been caught off guard last time. Yeah, that was it. None of this was his fault. It was all bad luck. Everyone was out to get him. He almost believed it. His launch pad had been one of the first to go off. That alone should have guaranteed him a spot in the upper echelons. Instead, he'd been knocked on his ass and left to fend for himself. Damn fox, he'd make him pay now. Where the hell were his boys? It was quiet here without them. Too quiet. Freaked him right out, it did. A twig snapped behind him. Cardin jumped and rounded on the sound of sky. That you? Leaves rustled all around him, shifting and bending in the wind. Rustle? You there? Somewhere ahead of him he heard a tree creak ominously, as if someone had knocked it down or something. Come on, guys. A note of high panic etched itself into the boy's voice as he looked around for its source. This shit ain't funny. Pulling ahead, he made for the first open area he could find, silently praying that it would be the ruin the old man had mentioned. Freaking headmaster. Daylight burst through the trees as he broke free from the branches. A delighted gasp stole its way out of him. With the encroaching branches now behind him, Cardin felt as though a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was just being paranoid. There was nothing to be afraid of here. The Emerald Forest was dangerous, sure, but so was he. He was fearless. He was mighty. He had a freaking two-handed mace, for crying out loud. Something wet and cloying sucked against his boot. The hell? The burly teen lifted his foot, frowned at it, and moved on toward the ruin. At first, Cardin didn't understand what he was looking at in the distance, if only because the glade before him was a mess of torn earth and dirt. Strange shapes lay scattered about at odd angles, and he didn't understand what they were at first. A silent pang of dread stole over him as he approached. Why were there crows in the sky? Were those even crows at all? Upon closer inspection, he recognized the shapes. They were bodies, dead bodies. They'd been slaughtered to a man, not just them, but one or two of the other applicants too, men he didn't recognize. What the shit? 3 of them. He knew Sky's head had been plucked right off his shoulders and spirited away, leaving his ruined body for the crow's dove was clutching at what might have been his stomach before something had torn it open. Russell Urkel God's Cardin couldn't even look at him. They died hard. All 3 of them. They died fighting and he hadn't been there. Cardin turned and vomited his breakfast into the grass. A lurid green puddle spreading beneath them. He looked up and heaved again. They weren't strong, no. Scratch that, he wasn't strong enough. What had he been thinking? Coming to Beacon a year early? They weren't ready for something like this. It was his fault, all his fault. He'd been the one to pressure his dad, who had in turn put pressure to Ozpin. They'd all wanted to be huntsmen so very badly, to be big damn heroes, and now his friends had paid the price for his folly. A low howl echoed through the woods. It was soon taken up by another still, another, each louder than the last. Monstrous eyes followed him from the grove he'd left behind, one pair larger than the rest, far larger. Something impossibly huge loped out of the thicket and into the clearing ahead of him. It was big, far bigger than any Beowulf had any right to be, easily eclipsing his. On all fours, hideous green spikes jutted from its back like porcupine quills as hideous slitted green eyes roved about the grove. Damned thing didn't look right. There was some ghastly metal-bladed thing attached to one of its hind legs that seemed to drag behind it, tearing a deep furrow into the ground as it walked. Looked like it had been welded on by some man, but that wasn't what captured his attention. Cardin gulped. You bastard. If its bloody snout and stained claws didn't confirm his suspicions already. Russell's arm did all that and more. He could even see the boy's long daggers jutting out of the beast's back, alongside Dove's short sword and the ruined shaft of Sky's halberd with a number of others. As he looked on, the gigantic creature tossed its head back and swallowed the mangled limb whole. This monster, this bastard, this thing had murdered his friends, his team. If he stood his ground here alone, it would undoubtedly do the same to him. It saw him, then, or perhaps it heard him. Who could say? Regardless, it made a chuffing sound that might have been laughter. Bullshit. Everyone knew that Grim didn't laugh, right? Little pig, little pig, little pig. Oh, what fresh hell was this? Grim couldn't talk at all. So why was this one speaking? Cardin's palms grew slick with sweat, and his mace suddenly felt like a lead weight in his hands. His armor, a heavy weight dragging him down. To his dismay, more of the creature's pack emerged from the trees, and still, his legs failed him one after the other. They padded forward, until he could no longer count them. No, he couldn't die here. He had to avenge his friends, but he couldn't do it alone. He knew that strength meant nothing against these numbers, and yet if he ran, they'd run him down in a matter of minutes, if not sooner. The lead Beowulf threw back its head and loosed a mighty howl that rattled the air itself. What little remained of Cardin's resolve broke. He scarpered, and the pack gave chase. What if neglected Naruto gets cheated in RWBY? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.